in this important race, and we will always put Minnesota citizens first.
Senator Amy Klobuchar originally declined our invitation as well. That prompted two of our debate partners to withdraw their support. They are the North Central States Regional Council of Carpenters and the Service Employees International Union.
The two organizations released a statement Thursday, which reads in part, "We appreciate the idea of business and labor putting aside our differences for a night to hear from candidates about issues facing Minnesota families." The statement goes on to say, "We no longer are comfortable having our names on this event and are dropping our sponsorship for this debate."
Now, on Friday, KSTP, Senator Klobuchar and challenger Jim Newberger confirmed a debate in that Senate race, and you will see it here tonight.
And we reached back out to both those unions then for a response. We have not heard back yet.
So we can tell you right now, we want to acknowledge our sponsors. They include Metropolitan State University, St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce, Prosperity's Front Door, and Citizens League.
And these four organizations have also helped make tonight's debates possible, and we appreciate their partnership today. Now, we want to let you know about the format and the rules of tonight's debates and interviews. We did not provide the questions to the candidates before the debate. However, we did share general topics with the campaigns.
And tonight, we are asking the candidates about a wide range of issues important to Minnesota voters. And while we did solicit questions from the public, audience members will not ask questions live tonight. Our first race is the special U.S. Senate election to finish the remainder of Al Franken's term.
Republican challenger Karin Housley and incumbent Democrat Tina Smith are running in that race. And again, Smith has declined to participate, so this will be a 15-minute interview with Housley. Karin Housley is currently a state senator for District 39, which covers parts of the East Metro. Housley is a businesswoman.
So let's begin the interview. Right now, your moderators tonight, 5 Eyewitness News morning anchors Megan Newquist and Chris Egert.
Paul and Leah, thank you, and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, this is one of two U.S. Senate races this midterm election.
Yeah, whoever wins on November 6th will go on to represent Minnesotans in Washington, D.C., and we would like to now give Karin Housley the opportunity to explain why she is running for U.S. Senate.
You have 30 seconds.
Thank you so much, Chris and Megan. I am Karin Housley, and I'm running to be a new voice in the United States Senate. I am a mom of 4, a grandmother of 2. I've been married to my high school sweetheart, Phil Housley, for 33 years, and I'm also a small business owner. I have a business a real estate business that operates both in Minnesota and Wisconsin, and I've also served in the state legislature in the Minnesota Senate for the last 6 years, and I'm asking for Minnesotans' vote on November 6th.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
We're going to start with a 2009 Facebook comment that you wrote, a chimp from an old Ronald Reagan movie, knew better than Michelle Obama about the proper etiquette when standing before the Queen of Britain. Do you understand why Minnesotans would find this comparison between a chimp and a black woman offensive?
Absolutely. And when I posted that, I meant no disrespect to the First Lady, Mrs. Obama. That was a comment that I had written to my sister because it was something my mother always used to say to my sister and I, to stand up straight, you're not a monkey, is what she would say. This was not a post on Facebook that was a standalone post, but this is precisely the reason that people don't run for politics, is because people will go back and dig up, even though for 15 years I have had a business that's operated publicly both in Minnesota and Wisconsin, and there hasn't been one ethics violation. I had a public radio show for 9 years. There was nothing there. I had a newspaper column for 9 years. Nothing to indicate anything like that. And then serving in the Minnesota Senate for 6 years, and there was nothing like that. So when people go back and really twist things to make it, to try and really tear people down, it is frustrating that that's what people do. But I absolutely meant nothing derogatory or to Mrs. Obama.
Thank you.
Okay. We would like to start with some of the issues that are important to Minnesotans. Healthcare certainly is one of those that is very important right now. 34% of those asked in our latest KSTP Survey USA poll indicated that it's important to them. So our question to you tonight is, why do you think it is so important to Minnesotans? Why are they so concerned about it? And how do we fix it?
It is. I have traveled to all 87 counties throughout the state of Minnesota, and it is the #1 issue, is their rising health care costs. Even the farmers, their deductibles and their premiums have doubled and tripled, and anything that they are feeling in their pocketbook for savings is being taken away because of their health care costs. And we have to lower the health care costs, and the way we do that, one, for our health care providers, we need to have them be more transparent, provide transparency. So if you're going to get a hip replacement, to be able to shop around and have them tell you what their actual costs are for their hip replacement. And also, when it comes to buying health insurance, we need to buy our health insurance like we do our car insurance. We need to be able to buy it across state lines, and the only thing that is going to drive healthcare costs down and health insurance premiums and deductibles is competition. And it's very disappointing that Tina Smith is not here tonight to tell her what her option is, because hers is socialized, government-run healthcare plan. And for 9 years, I lived in Canada, and it was socialized medicine, and it was government-run, and I'm telling you, it does not work. If you're healthy, free health care sounds great, but when you get sick, you have to get in line, sign up, and pray that you get your treatment or your surgery. Our son was hospitalized while we were in Winnipeg, and after 6 weeks in the hospital and many horrific stories that we don't have time to go into now, I was very lucky that I was able to pull him out of that hospital, drive down here to United Hospital, and he was able to get the health care that he needed. So many of the Canadians would really love to have the health care system that we have here in the United States. So what we had before really did work. We kept people on a program called MSHA that had those with pre-existing conditions, but when the failed Obamacare came into Minnesota, caused our health care costs to double and triple. That's what really hit Minnesotans hard in their pocketbooks. So we need to go back to something that is more affordable, and the only way we can drive costs down is through competition.
Well, Democrats will say that Republicans are against the coverage for pre-existing conditions, which is obviously a very big concern for anybody who's got to deal with a pre-existing condition. Is that true?
No, absolutely is not true, and that's they're running all of their commercials on that. Even my opponent, who is not here tonight to defend herself, is saying that I don't support pre-existing conditions. And I absolutely do. It is very, very important. Like I said, we had the program before Obamacare came into Minnesota that we did insure those on pre-existing conditions in MSHA with a high-risk pool. So it is something that going forward we need to continue to be able to keep these with pre-existing conditions on the plans.
Okay. Let's stay on healthcare for one more question. Assuming that it will take a deal in Washington to come up with some kind of a plan, Democrats and Republicans working together, that's also assuming that there would have to be some compromise involved. What would you be willing to compromise when it would come to working out a healthcare deal?
And this is traveling throughout the state again. This is another one of the things that Minnesotans are so frustrated with, is their elected officials not getting along, digging their heels in. There's so much extremism and partisanship that they're not getting anything done. And my opponent, too, is obstructing at every turn. Anything good that's laid in front of her, she's obstructing or voting no. So we really have to work together and quit playing a political hot potato with health care. I did it in the Minnesota Senate. I was a group of 12 state senators. We called ourselves the Sensibles. You weren't the ones that you were seeing on the TV news every night with a far-right issue at the podium or a far-left issue at the podium. We were the group in the middle that really worked together to get things done. I won my Senate district only by 1% the first time I ran, 631 votes. And I knew that I would have to work really hard to convince those people in my district that I would work hard for them, listen to all of their issues, because issues don't have a letter behind them, a D or an R, and I needed to work together across the aisle to get good things done for the people of my district. And so I did that, and when I ran again in 2016, I won by 25%. So I have a real track record of getting things done and working across the aisle, and what they need to do in Washington, D.C. is quit playing hot potato with the healthcare issues.
Our time is limited tonight, so we'd like to move on to the next issue here, which would be immigration. 36% of the people polled in our latest KSTP Survey USA poll said that they are not sure if their city handles undocumented immigrants appropriately. I have 3 questions that I would like a yes or no answer to, and then I'll do a follow-up if that's okay with you. The first question is, do you support earned legal status for undocumented persons, yes or no?
Do I support earned legal status for undocumented residents? We have to let our, oh, here I go. You want yes or no? But we have to let our law enforcement, our police officers do their job.
Okay, next question to you is, do you support building a wall along the Mexico border?
I do support securing our borders. We need to secure our borders so we know who's here in the United States to keep all of us safe.
And do you support sanctuary cities and/or states?
No, I absolutely do not support sanctuary cities. If my opponent were here, she supports sanctuary cities, and she would like Minnesota to be a sanctuary state.
So my follow-up to you would be then, what does an immigration deal that works look like?
And that's the other one that they keep playing political hot potato with. Tina Smith had the opportunity to vote for a package that would keep our dreamers here. We need to really work on immigration reform. All of us here in this room and everybody in the audience came from an immigrant. My grandfather came from Yugoslavia to work in the meat packing plants in South St. Paul. And he came here legally. He came through Ellis Island, went to the Iron Range, and came down to South St. Paul. So we have to make sure that we do secure our borders so we know who is here. And we want the best and brightest from around the world to come to the United States. But we want them to come here legally and not come across our borders illegally, and we don't know who they are, because that does not keep our citizens safe.
Senator, you are in the process right now trying to become elected to serve a 2-year term in the Senate. Would you run again if you are elected?
Oh.
Would you run again for Senate?
Oh, absolutely, I will run again for Senate when I'm elected, yes.
So, and then I ask you this, that gives you only 2 years to go to Washington, D.C., which by the time you factor in a re-election campaign, it doesn't give you a whole lot of time in Washington, D.C. So if you get elected and if you're there, again, for a 2-year term, what would be one issue that you would like to really dig in on and make your own?
Well, healthcare is the big one, and especially for the folks here in Minnesota. That is the #1 issue on their mind, so we have to make sure that healthcare is affordable. And what I've championed back here in the Minnesota Senate, something that's very near and dear to me, is taking care of our seniors, our elderly. There was never an aging and long-term care committee in the Minnesota Senate, and so when we took the majority in 2016, I pushed to get an aging and long-term care committee. I got it. I became the chair of that committee, and through that process, I found the failures of Tina Smith in not providing care for our seniors, and there were thousands of reports of abuse and neglect happening in our nursing homes. And so making sure that our seniors are protected in our nursing homes and the issues that are facing them will be a top priority for me.
Well, obviously, Senator Smith isn't here to defend herself or her position on that, but the fact of the matter is she was lieutenant governor under the administration that she's serving is when a lot of these problems that were exposed involving the elder population in Minnesota. Do you blame the policies of the Democrats for helping to create that problem? Or at least not finding it and taking care of it?
Well, and there is a trail of emails that they knew about it, and they knew it was happening, and there was cover-up within the Department of Health, which I uncovered and got the legislative auditor to do an audit of this department, this agency within the Department of Health, and the Department of Health commissioner resigned, the assistant commissioner resigned. We had that audit done. We had the Department of Human Services come over to the Department of Health. So if Tina Smith didn't know what was happening in her administration while she was the lieutenant governor, then the blame does lie with them.
Let's talk people's money. The Tax Cuts and Job Acts passed less than a year ago. It is kind of been yet to see what will happen for many people come April when their tax returns are due. I'm curious from you how you see that this bill helps Minnesotans and maybe how you see it hurts us.
The tax and jobs bill was a good policy bill that did get passed, and what it did is it helped Minnesotans keep more of their hard-earned dollars in their pocket, and it created jobs. We now have the lowest unemployment in the United States that we've had in 50 years, and we have economic growth at 4.2%. There are more jobs than we have people to fill right now. And we need to, what was disappointing in the Minnesota Senate was the governor vetoed the tax reform bill that would make Minnesota in compliance with the tax and jobs bill. But we have businesses here in Minnesota that are now giving their employees $1,000 bonuses because the noose around their neck with regulations helped them. So they're creating more jobs. We had companies bring over millions and millions of dollars that they had repatriated from overseas to Minnesota, to the United States, to help create more jobs. So it really did work for this country with the economic growth, like I said, at 4.2%. I want to get to Washington, D.C. to continue those. There's such a slim majority in the United States Senate. Congress, or the House, has passed quite a few bills that are sitting there at the floor of the U.S. Senate that can't get passed because there's such a slim majority. So I want to get there to make sure we can continue this economic growth.
We'll give you closing statements here in just a minute. I have one more question for you.
Yep.
This is a yes or no. City of Minneapolis has moved forward with a $15 an hour minimum wage. The City of St. Paul is discussing a $15 minimum wage. If elected, would you support a federal minimum wage of $15 an hour?
Absolutely not. This is one of the things that the tax and job bill did all on its own. Companies are now raising their minimum wage all on their own. It's not something that should be federally mandated or state mandated. The company should have the freedom to decide what they want to pay for their own minimum wage, and that has increased since the tax and jobs bill in January.
Okay. Finally, we have one moment for you to give a closing statement.
Thank you. That went quick.
I know, 15 minutes went like
I
that.
am Karin Housley, running for the United States Senate to be a new voice for Minnesota. When I get to Washington, D.C., I want to work to lower our health care costs, opposed to my opponent, who didn't show up tonight, which was very disappointing. She wants a government-run socialized medicine. I will work to lower Minnesotans' taxes, and Tina Smith, my opponent, supported the largest tax hike in Minnesota history. And I will also work to secure our borders, to make sure that we reform our immigration laws. And my opponent, Tina Smith, wants open borders and make Minnesota a sanctuary state. So Minnesota has a real choice on November 6th, and I'm asking for your vote for Karin Housley for the United States Senate to be a new voice for Minnesota.
Senator Housley, thank you so much for your time tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Again, we do want to remind everyone that Democrat Tina Smith did decline our invitation to participate in tonight's debate. Thank you for watching this candidate discussion with us. We hope that you have found it helpful and informative as you go to the polls on November 6th.
Now let's turn it over to Matt Belanger and Brandy Powell. Hi, guys.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Once again, I'm Brandy Powell.
Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Belanger. You've just been watching an interview with Karin Housley.
If you missed any of it, we have the full conversation posted on KSTP.com.
We now want to move on to our first debate of the evening. It's the United States Senate election between incumbent Democrat Amy Klobuchar and the challenger Republican Jim Newberger.
Amy Klobuchar currently serves as Minnesota U.S. Senator. She was elected to that seat in 2006. Klobuchar previously served as the Hennepin County Attorney.
Jim Newberger currently serves as a state representative for District 15B in central Minnesota. Newberger was elected to that seat in 2012. He works as a paramedic, and due to scheduling conflicts, this debate is not live. It was recorded earlier today.
And here are your moderators, 5 Eyewitness News anchors Lindsey Brown and Kevin Doran.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. This is one of 2 U.S. Senate races this midterm election.
The candidate that wins the election November 6th will represent Minnesotans in Washington for 6 years, and now we want to give both our U.S. Senate candidates a chance to explain why they're running for Senate.
And we actually had a coin toss earlier to determine who goes first. We begin with Senator Amy Klobuchar. You have 30 seconds.
I'm Amy Klobuchar, and I'm your U.S. Senator, and I am focused on a competitive agenda for Minnesota and for America. And to me, that means making things here. It means inventing things and exporting to the world. It means making sure our students get the education they need to compete, and investing in our rural broadband and bridges and roads, and making sure we bring prices down on things like pharmaceuticals. I work across the aisle with Republicans, Democrats, Independents. That's why President Trump has signed 21 of my bills into law. I work for you, and I hope to earn your support.
Representative Newberger.
Well, thank you. Senator Klobuchar?
Thank you, too.
Welcome to the debate. Hello, I'm Jim Newberger, and I'd like to thank the folks at home and the folks at KSTP for sponsoring this event and for making it possible. I've worked in the Minnesota House very hard for my district and for all of Minnesota. My opponent, she wants to be in the U.S. Senate for 18 years. And she'll spend up to $6 million to make that happen. I have under $250,000. I'm the hardest working underdog you'll ever meet. 1 year ago, I was down 30 points. Today, it's 9. Why? Because I'm one of you. We are the grassroots, and together, I will give you a voice in the U.S. Senate.
Thank you both.
Thank you. And now we go into our question portion. Representative Newberger, in a debate at the State Fair, you said U.S. senators overstay their welcome after 2 terms. You again said 18 years is a long time to be in the swamp. Explain why it's time for a change.
That's an excellent question. Thank you. Being in government is a privilege. It's something that we do as a service to the people that will elect us to be there. 18 years, what were you doing 18 years ago? Ask that to anybody. 18 years is too much, and you become part of the institution. You become part of the problem in many cases. I believe that 12 years is enough. Go in, serve your 12 years, and be done. And as your next U.S. Senator, that's what I will do for myself. I've imposed my own term limits. I currently serve in the Minnesota House of Representatives. I'm in my 3rd term. I'm in a very red district. I have a great relationship with the folks in my district, with my local parties, and with my community leaders. I have a place in government. If I wanted to stay put, I could. But you know what? That's not the right thing to do. I'm stepping away from that. I'm imposing my own term limits in order to serve the people of Minnesota.
Senator Klobuchar, why should you go back to Washington? And if you are reelected, I mean, your name's been floated as a possible Democratic presidential candidate or a cabinet position. Would you promise to serve your full 6-year term?
I'm focused on Minnesota, and I think everyone knows that. I visit all 87 counties every single year, and that's where I get my best ideas. I'm someone that even just in the last year was found to be the person on our side most likely to co-sponsor bills with Republicans. And every day I go to work and say, what do we need? That's why number one request was to get on the Agriculture Committee, and I've worked positively on several farm bills. It's why I've worked on issues like training our workers, because Minnesota needs to compete with the world, and we want to make sure that we have kids graduating with degrees in technology and science and engineering and math, and that not everyone has the same path to success. And also why we need to do things like invest in our roads and our bridges. I have worked on a lot of infrastructure projects in Minnesota, both in the metro area and in the rural areas. And when at a time when people are talking about divides and parties and divides between rural and metro, I really work hard to bridge that gap.
Senator, you said you are focused on Minnesota, but what about the 6-year promise? Would you do that?
Yes, I have said very clearly I plan to keep representing Minnesota. That is what I have done and want to continue to do. But I think our real problem right now is gridlock and too much grandstanding and people thinking they just stand in the opposite corners of the boxing ring. That's why I've done things like work with Senator Cornyn just recently to take care of a backlog on rape cases, or work with Senator Grassley to say to the big pharma companies, hey, stop paying off generic competitors to keep your products off the market. That's outrageous. Pharmaceutical companies seem to own Washington, but they don't own me.
During his recent confirmation hearings, new Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh said the process has destroyed his family. Representative Newberger, do you worry the tone of those hearings will keep quality candidates from getting involved in the process?
Absolutely. That's a wonderful question. I'm glad you brought up that topic. I have been traveling all around Minnesota as well. I've put on close to 60,000 miles on my car. You know the song, I've Been Everywhere? Well, I have. I've been there at least twice, and I'll go there 3 times if I need to. Traveling all around Minnesota, talking to folks for the last 16 months, they are disgusted. They are disgusted at the way that Judge Kavanaugh, now Justice Kavanaugh, was treated. His family and his children, and also Dr. Ford, the way she was treated. I have been in the Minnesota House of Representatives now for 3 terms, 6 years. I've served all 6 years on the Public Safety Committee, which is one committee that gets some of the most contentious bills. We've had some very agitated and contentious hearings, especially over gun legislation and so forth. But I have never, not one time, ever seen anyone from either side of the aisle treat witnesses or people there testifying in committee the way that they were treated in the United States Senate. That was wrong, it was disrespectful, and it shouldn't happen in the U.S. Senate. And as your next U.S. Senator, I will treat everyone with respect.
Senator Klobuchar, you were on that committee. Do you have concerns that what we all saw as a country will prevent quality people from wanting to put their name in this?
I don't think so. And I want to step back for a second, and that is I've long been involved in justice issues and law enforcement issues. I was a prosecutor, ran the Hennepin County Attorney's Office, and I also am proud to have the endorsement of the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association, as well as the Minnesota firefighters. And I think they understand that I get those law enforcement issues. That hearing was about deciding a job, the highest court of the land. And Judge Kavanaugh himself actually apologized to me after the exchange that we had, and I appreciated that, and I said it. But we had to ask questions about his views on issues. And for me, I continued to be concerned about the fact that he wrote an opinion that would have found the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, which protects everyone in Minnesota and the country, given back $12 billion on mortgage fraud and scams, and he wrote an opinion that it should be unconstitutional. He said he would strike down the net neutrality rules, so I just found him not to be an independent thinker.
Just to talk about the process, though, a lot of people you hear just from around the country here in Minnesota say something was wrong with that process. Do you think that there's a problem with the process?
Well, I think I would have liked to see all of this information come out as early as possible so that we could have had the background check done. But once it came forward, and once Dr. Ford submitted this letter and it went public, and I saw it the same day everyone else did when it went public, I really thought to myself, you know what? She needs to have her day to tell her story. This is America, and when you get compelling evidence like that, you don't just put it under the rug. When you're in a position of power, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, and this is what some of my colleagues said, like Senator Flake, you at least hear her out and you let her have a chance to tell her story and then get the background check done.
A lot of people believe the midterm election is a referendum on the job that President Trump is doing. In a recent KSTP Survey USA poll, of all Minnesotans, 40% approve of the president's job performance, 50% disapprove, 10% aren't sure. Senator Klobuchar, what's your opinion of the leadership of President Trump?
Well, I have worked with him and his administration on some important issues. I've been over to the White House several times on things like opioids, was there when he signed the emergency order, when it came to bringing our epidemic to the forefront. I'm glad to have Shelley Elkington here with me, who lost her daughter, Casey, to this epidemic, and has stood with me and worked with both sides of the aisle. I have tried valiantly to work with the administration on things like transportation. I think we need to be more focused on infrastructure. And so while I will work with people where I find common ground, and I have made that my mission, no matter who people are, I'm of course concerned about some of the rhetoric that comes out of the White House, some of the issues that the way the president has treated people. I don't agree with that. So I figure my job is to find common ground when you can and be a check and balance when you can. And right now we have one party running both houses of Congress, the presidency, and basically have picked the Supreme Court. And so that's why I view my role as being both someone that finds common ground for our state and provides a check and balance whenever you can.
Representative Newberger, we were probably going to ask the exact same question. What do you think about the president's leadership?
It's a great question, and thank you. I want to take one step back and just clarify a couple of quick points. Number one, with the Kavanaugh case, the letters, especially the letter from Dr. Ford, it's documented that they had that weeks in advance, and they held on to that letter until the last minute. They chewed up the clock to try to start this political circus. Folks, that's not serving the state of Minnesota properly. Second, as far as having background information on how Judge Kavanaugh, how he operates as a judge and now a justice, there were over 300 cases that he tried that were part of public record. So, folks, the information was there. They were just chewing up the clock like they do on a football game. They were playing political games. I've seen it time and time again in the Minnesota House, and I saw it in the U.S. Senate when they were doing that. When it comes to our president's leadership, I support our president, and I support his plan to make America great. Do I always agree with some of his actions? No. That's simple.
What areas would you differ from the president on?
I'm sorry?
What areas would you differ from President Trump on?
I would have to say number one would be spending without seeing some results from it. There were two spending bills. Folks at home probably don't realize that we haven't had a budget in years. We keep passing these continuing spending resolutions. There were two. One that was passed earlier this year, and what that did is it invested into the American economy. It spent about $1.3 trillion over a decade. Folks, I don't like spending, but sometimes you got to spend money to make money, and that's what they did. And we are seeing unprecedented growth and prosperity. I would have voted for that. My opponent, Senator Klobuchar, she did not. She voted no. But the second bill that they had was a continuing resolution. It was just a flat spending bill. That's all it did was spend money. I would not have voted for that because there was no return on our investment. So I'm not going to be a 90% rubber stamp for President Trump like my opponent is for her leadership. Senator Klobuchar has, over her 12-year history, has a 90% rubber stamp compliant voting record with her leadership. So when you talk about reaching across the aisle and achieving things and getting things done, I'm not seeing it.
Senator Klobuchar, would you like to respond to that?
Well, I would say when you look around the Midwest, I've voted over 40% with Senator Thune, over 40% with Senator Hoeven, 47% with Senator Murkowski of Alaska. These are Republican senators. So I try to look at things and figure out what's the right thing to do. But what I don't like with what's going on over at the White House is that I don't see the president as leading from opportunity. To me, it seems like it's crisis after crisis after crisis. And I see opportunity out there for us. I think we need to be doing more like passing the Farm Bill and stop going from crisis to crisis when it comes to these tariffs. I just met with our soybean farmers in Ada and heard firsthand what's happening to them. I think we need to be doing more when it comes to the debt. And I just saw that this tax bill, while there were some things in it, I would have brought the rate down, the corporate rate down to 24, 25%, but they went all the way down to 21%. And every single point is $100 billion in debt. And that's why $1 trillion was added to the debt. And so these are things that really concern me about what's going on and why I try to work in the middle with people that want to find actual solutions to things and not just grandstand on them.
Another big issue, health care, access and affordability are problems with health care in the U.S. We all hear about it. Senator Klobuchar, you believe the government needs to fix market failures. Representative Newberger, you support free markets. Can we trust the private sector to reduce the cost of prescriptions and procedures? And we start with you.
Well, absolutely. I think the bigger question is can you trust the government? If you look at my opponent, Senator Klobuchar, she was a champion for the Obamacare, which is now the Minshew nightmare failure that we have in Minnesota. It's a $350 million website that doesn't work. Folks, it doesn't work. I have spent the first 2 years of my term in the Minnesota House helping my constituents with their Obamacare Minshew nightmares. I have people who call me daily when we are in session saying, why do I even have insurance? I'm paying up to $1,000 a month for my premium. My copays and deductibles, sometimes they add up to over $20,000. Who has that kind of money? Who has that before their insurance even kicks in a nickel? Obamacare Minshew does not work. And my opponent, Senator Klobuchar, wants to put us into another big government program, Medicare for All. Medicare for All is what they call it. And you know that's going to cost $32 trillion. And that number comes from a left-leaning think tank. Where do we have $32 trillion? Our national debt is $25 trillion. Folks, the final thing I'll say about this Medicare for All program is that if you currently have insurance, if you have private insurance or VA insurance, or if you're currently on Medicare, you'll lose it. Senator, everyone will lose their insurance because we will all be put into one big government program. Folks, it's not going to work. Let the free markets do their thing and make sure we cover people with pre-existing conditions.
A lot to react to there. Go.
That's for sure. I want to step back. Minnesotans have always been, we've been proud of our health care. We have great health care providers, but we have to make it more affordable. And one of the things that really concerns me is if we repeal the Affordable Care Act, which is what my opponent is said he wants to do, then what happens? Well, remember, in that Affordable Care Act was coverage for everyone, even when you have private insurance, like a lot of Minnesotans have. That was things like saying you can't get kicked off your insurance if you have a pre-existing condition. That's over half of Minnesotans. So if you have diabetes, if you have cancer, it means you could get kicked off of your insurance. And right now, in a case in Texas, the administration is arguing to that you should get rid of that protection on pre-existing conditions. I don't agree with that. Secondly, we've got to make improvements, and our legislature, on a bipartisan basis, working with our governor, was able to come up with some good things like reinsurance and cost savings that made it easier for people on the premiums. And we need to do that on the federal level, and I support that bill. And then finally, rural, we've got to look at rural differently. We have critical access hospitals and support those and make sure we bring down pharmaceutical prices. Senator McCain and I have a bill, sadly, we've lost him, but it's a very important bill to bring in less expensive drugs from Canada. I mentioned stopping big pharma stopping them from doing deals with generic companies so they get their products off the market. And finally, let's harness the power of 41 million seniors so they can negotiate prices under Medicare. That's how you get better prices.
I want to say, Representative Newberger, we hear a lot from the Democrats during ads about Republicans wanting to get rid of pre-existing conditions. Where do you stand on that?
Well, absolutely. That's a great question. I've been a paramedic for 30 years. I've worked full-time at a level 1 trauma center in North Minneapolis. If anyone understands the healthcare crisis, you're looking at him. I know what it's like to show up at someone's house when they have an illness or they've been hurt, and they want to go to the hospital, but they can't. They're afraid. They're saying, I don't have insurance. I can't cover this. Folks, I want to make a couple of steps back. First of all, Senator Klobuchar said that everyone gets insurance with Obamacare. No, that's not the case. Everyone was forced to get insurance, and if you didn't get insurance, you paid a penalty that cost thousands and thousands of dollars. That's not giving everyone insurance. That's forcing everyone to have insurance. And as far as the critical access hospitals around the state, if we go to a Medicare for All program, we will shut down your community hospitals. I have spoken to medical administrators throughout the state, people that crunch the numbers for a living, and they have told us, they said, current Medicare reimbursement rates don't help us pay our bills. We have to rely on private insurance to cover those losses. If we go to a Medicare for All program, the only hospitals that will still be open for business will be those in the big metro area. And another thing, the solution, let's buy drugs from Canada. Why don't we do something in the U.S. Senate and bring down the drug prices right here in America? The U.S. Senate has the power to do that. We need to sit down with those big pharma industries and say, you're ripping us off. We don't need to go to Canada. We need to go to the U.S., and we're going to pay a fair price for your product.
Senator Klobuchar, quick response.
Well, maybe we should ask Nicole Holt-Smith, who's here with us today, whose son was a general manager at a restaurant in Richfield. And she's working with me and supporting me, and that is because her son died because he was trying to take his insulin and squeeze it out over the months because he didn't have enough money to pay for it, and he had a job. And that's what's happening right now because the pharmaceutical companies own Washington. My opponent's party is running the House and the Senate, and we have seen no action at all when it comes to bringing pharmaceutical prices down. No bills. All the bills that I am leading, including allowing generics to take samples of the drugs from the big drug companies, no action on that. And when it comes to bringing in less expensive drugs from Canada, something that former Governor Pawlenty supported, I don't think that's a bad idea at all. I think it's a good idea. And the way you get it done, and it's been very clear, the courts have said state by state you can't do it. We have to get it done federally. Their prices in Canada are twice as good as ours.
Let's move on here. Right now, there's a migrant caravan of thousands of people making its way from Honduras through Mexico, headed for the United States, and the president has said he'll shut the border down. Senator Klobuchar, there's widespread agreement our current immigration system is broken, but how do we fix it?
Good question. First of all, we need to pass comprehensive immigration reform, something that a number of Republicans supported a few years ago in the Senate. And that bill that we passed in the Senate and then got stalled out in the House, that bill had $46 billion for order at the border. And that includes everything from a fence to a wall to personnel. So how did it get paid for? Well, guess what? It brings the debt down by $158 billion because it also contains a path to citizenship for those that haven't committed felonies, for those that learn English, for those that are willing to work in America. It also contains temporary worker status for people in the ag community, and it's good for the economy. That's why someone like Grover Norquist, who's a deficit hawk and a Republican, supported that bill in the Senate. It was supported by the Chamber of Commerce and the unions. It was supported by the Farm Bureau, which also supports me, as well as by the Farmers Union, because this is an economic imperative for our country as well as a security issue.
Representative Newberger, what does comprehensive immigration reform mean to you?
Well, first of all, thank you for the question. First of all, we have to secure our border. If we don't have a secure border, then we don't have a country. Because right now we have people that are coming across that are illegal or undocumented, and they're coming into our nation, and they're bringing drugs, they're bringing gangs, and they're bringing violence. You talk to anyone that's in border security along the southern border, and they will attest to that time and time again. We must secure our borders. Senator Klobuchar, she supports open borders, which would in turn lead to sanctuary cities. Right now, I don't support that, and I will not support that. Minnesota is not going to become a sanctuary state. As your next U.S. Senator, I will make sure that happens, that we do not become a sanctuary state. As far as immigration is concerned, I support immigration, legal immigration. We are a nation of immigrants. We are better because of immigrants. But all we ask is that if you come here, come to live under our law. And the first step in doing that is obeying our law and going through the immigration process.
Representative Newberger, you mentioned closing borders. We have to do that, you say. Are we talking about the border wall?
Absolutely, yes.
And funding for it?
Yep, build the wall.
Senator Klobuchar, what's your opinion on sanctuary cities?
Well, I think that we have to give police the right to do their jobs, and they need the resources to do it. And I think part of this, having been a prosecutor, is that when you have a victim comes forward and says that they have been hurt by someone, whether they are undocumented or not, you want to give them their say in court. And so you don't want to, and that's why a lot of police chiefs and others have said, look, our job is to do local enforcement and make sure that we don't have rapists or murderers or people that are committing crimes. So we want to do that without asking those kinds of questions. And we'll let the law enforcement people on the federal side enforce those laws. But I do want to respond to something that Representative Newberger said, because he has said that he is against all what he calls illegal immigration. Yet just last week on a ABC affiliate, your affiliate in Rochester, he said for the 5% that have committed crimes that they shouldn't be citizens. But he said for the other 95% of what I think are the 11 to 12 million people that are here, he said, quote, we sit down and say, here is the steps to become a citizen or to become a permanent resident alien. Either one is fine. Here are the steps, earn it. So to me, this sounds like something that we agree on, that you should be able to be on a pathway to citizenship and earn citizenship for the people who are here now, instead of deporting 12 million people.
Response to that?
Well, thank you, and I appreciate you bringing up half of the story on that. First of all, it's not 11 to 12 million illegal or undocumented people that are here. It's closer to 40 million. And right now, there's some folks that are saying, let's just round them all up and send them back to wherever they came from. And there are some folks that are saying, hand out citizenship certificates like coupons at a grocery store. Folks, neither one of those is going to work. It's not going to work. You are not going to round up 40 million people and send them back to wherever they came from, as much as some people might want that. What we need to do, and Senator Klobuchar did accurately quote me on this, is we take and we find out who all of these people are. And if you're a criminal, you're out. We don't want you. We don't want other nations' criminals. But if you are not a criminal and you've been here for a substantial period of time, I don't know, we'll set a time period. But if you're here before the wall is built, then we sit down with you and we say, if you want to become an American citizen, earn it. We're not going to just give it to you. You need to earn it. My dad fought the Imperial Japanese forces in World War II. Men and women were fighting and dying ever since our nation was founded, because there is value in being an American. There is value in being an American. You don't just hand out citizenship to anyone you feel that you want to give it to. Earn it. You go through the process like anyone else. I have family members who have gone through the process. I have friends in the audience today, right now, who have gone through the process. And you know what? They are following the law. That's what we ask.
We want to get more topics in. Are there changes you would make to our public education system to better prepare students for the workforce? Start with Senator Klobuchar.
Sure.
Education has been key to our success in Minnesota. You look at how strong our economy is here compared to a lot of states. That's because we've invested in education. And I'm a product of the public schools. My daughter went to public schools. My husband went to Catholic school in Mankato. And we understand the value of that education in our family, and I think every Minnesotan does. So the first thing that we've done is to fix the No Child Left Behind, which was a real mess and didn't have support in Minnesota on the Republican or Democratic side. And so we worked together to get that done in the last few years to give more power to local school boards and states in making changes. The second thing that I would do is to do more to focus on education for the jobs that we have. And interestingly, in Minnesota, local districts and citizens are voting to expand their Vote Tech program.
Trade schools.
Right, and do more with apprenticeships and get people to those jobs and get those skills. I can't tell you how important this is because we don't have enough people to fill some of the jobs we have, and we're going to lose it. We have to understand that there's many paths to success. My sister didn't graduate from high school. She ended up getting a GED after working in manufacturing down in Iowa, and then she got a 2-year degree and then a 4-year degree. My dad started out with a 2-year degree. That's why we have to support community colleges and make sure that we show the dignity of that work where you can get a 1-year certification or more. Those are the jobs we have, and they're really good paying jobs.
And Representative Newberger, let's also add into that the cost of education rising, specifically college, and the debt that these students have that sometimes they just cannot even pay off. What is the answer to this?
Oh, this is an issue that's near and dear to me. I have 3 daughters who are in their mid-20s and mid to late 20s, and all 3 of them are struggling with student debt. I am a product of the public school system as well. Both my wife and I went to public school. I went to State University. We have experience with all different forms of education. I was even a high school instructor. But when it comes to the future, our kids are not getting the education that they need. I agree, we must really promote technical education. I have toured a number of different industries up on the Iron Range, all the way down to the far corners of the state. And every industry I tour, every job provider I talk to, they say, we are crying out for people who have technical skills. If you're good with your hands, we need those people. That's where we need to focus. But we need to go farther than that. We need to go much farther than that. Our kids are drowning in student debt. They are getting ripped off the minute they get accepted to a college, a state university. We are not setting them up for success. We are setting them up for enormous amounts of debt. My opponent, Senator Klobuchar, her solution at the state fair was just to allow kids to renegotiate their debt load. So what? You're still in debt. If you have $50,000, $100,000, $120,000 in student debt, so what? You still owe that money. What we need to do is we need to take a step back, and if you go to a university or a college that gets government funding of any kind, then we need to tie the rate of tuition to the minimum wage. When I started college, it was $350 or it was $17.50 a credit per class. Minimum wage was $350. You know what? State universities need to do the same thing. Cost for 1 credit of education should not be more than 5 times the minimum wage. And we can do that in the U.S. Senate. We can do that here in Minnesota. Bring down the cost.
Absolutely.
I would like to respond
Quick,
because
please, because we need to get to
got
closing
it.
statement.
You think about the people out there that have student debt. They know what I'm talking about. And we should be able to let them refinance just like millionaires refinance their yachts. There's a way to pay for it, too. And you can pay for it by putting in place the Buffett rule. Warren Buffett said, hey, how come my secretary pays a higher rate of taxes than I do? And he's a billionaire. If we do that, it's $37 billion that can pay for people to be able to refinance their loans, and then let's make community college free by also taking out some of these tax loopholes that we have, like for the oil companies, $22 billion, and making it easier. I'm not talking about 4-year degrees here. I'm talking about the 1- and 2-year degrees to encourage students to go into those lines of education.
Our time has passed. Time for our closing statements. Representative Newberger, you have 1 minute.
Well, thank you. Hi, folks. I'm Jim Newberger, and people around Minnesota were convinced that Senator Klobuchar would have made this event her 9th cancellation. Silencing underdogs, silencing underdogs because they don't have millions of dollars to convince you to vote for them. You know what? That's not the right thing to do. It's a mean tactic, and it needs to be drained out with the rest of the swamp. Folks, before you, I have one question. Do you want to continue to prosper, or do you want to go back to the Obama days of stagnation? As your next U.S. Senator, I will support bringing you back quality health care at a low cost. I will support legal immigration, and I will also work to fix the refugee resettlement program. We haven't touched on that issue. It's huge. We must shut it down, and we must fix it. I will support lowering your taxes. And folks, I'm out of time. But you can check out my website, jim4ussenate.com. Love to have you there. Once again, I'm Jim Newberger. I'm a dad, I'm a paramedic, I'm a husband, and I humbly ask for your vote.
Thank you, Representative Newberger. Now, Senator Klobuchar, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, Lindsay and Kevin and KSTP. I'm the granddaughter of an iron ore miner and the daughter of a teacher and a newspaperman. And I have been guided by the values that I learned growing up in Minnesota: hard work, fair play, and getting things done. And I think we need more of that in Washington, D.C. I have worked across the aisle with anyone that will work with me to get things done for our economy, for our workers, for our businesses, for our families. That's why President Trump signed my bills into law, and why I've been ranked #1 in the last Congress for getting bills signed into law. I help the people of our state. I cut through red tape, whether it's a veteran who lost his leg, who wasn't getting his benefits, seniors who need their Medicare, students who need their student loans, or a farmer who just wants fair play. Courage isn't just standing by yourself in the corner of a Senate floor giving a speech. Courage is whether you'll stand next to someone you don't always agree with for the betterment of this country. I have worked for you, and I hope I will earn your support.
Senator Klobuchar, Representative Newberger, thank you so much for agreeing to debate with us, and to everybody at home, thank you for watching this, and we hope we have given you some good information to help you make up your mind on Election Day. I'm Kevin Doran.
And I'm Lindsey Brown, and thank you to both of you. And now we're going to send it back to Brandy Powell and Matt Belanger.
Kevin and Lindsay, thank you so much, and thank you for being with us this evening as we broadcast live.
A lot of great insight tonight from the candidates as we prepare for the midterm election.
So you've just been watching the United States Senate race debate with the challenger, Jim Newberger, and incumbent Amy Klobuchar.
And if you missed any of it, or you'd like to see it again, we have this posted in its entirety on our website, KSTP.com. And before we begin our gubernatorial debate, we do want to take a look at some of the rules and the format.
Now, we did not provide the questions to the candidates before the debate. However, we did share general topics with each of the campaigns.
And tonight, we are asking the candidates about a wide range of issues important to Minnesota voters. While we did solicit questions from the public, audience members will not ask questions live tonight.
Each candidate will have 30 seconds to deliver an opening statement about why they're running for the office. And there will not be a specific time restriction for the candidates to give their responses or rebuttals to the moderator's questions. To close out the debate, both candidates will have 1 minute to give their final remarks. And now to our gubernatorial debate. Current Governor Mark Dayton is not seeking re-election, and here are the two candidates vying for his job.
We have Jeff Johnson. He's the Republican nominee. He's currently a Hennepin County commissioner. Johnson is the founder and owner of a firm that provides legal resources to businesses.
Tim Walz is the DFL nominee. He's currently serving as a representative for Minnesota's 1st congressional district, covering the southern part of the state. Walz is a former teacher. Now, we've been bringing you these debates from Metropolitan State University's Great Hall, this beautiful facility behind us tonight.
It is a fantastic building on a beautiful campus here in St. Paul. Let's take a listen now to a message from Ginny Arthur, president of Metro State.
I'm Ginny Arthur, president of Metropolitan State, Minnesota State's public urban university. We are a university nationally recognized for our commitment to community and civic engagement, and so we are pleased to host these important debates. Metropolitan State offers an excellent, engaging, and personalized education for a diverse set of students, including working adults and transfer students throughout the region. I hope you find these debates a useful learning experience.
And a big thank you to everyone who's worked to make this evening of debates possible.
Now to the race for governor. We begin this hour-long debate now. Your moderators tonight, 5 Eyewitness News anchors Leah McLean and Paul Folger.
All right, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. We're so glad you're here watching. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us.
We hope to provide a helpful service tonight and answer your questions over the next hour. We do begin with opening statements from both candidates on why they are running for the governor's office. Tim Walz, you have 30 seconds.
Well, good evening, Minnesotans, and thank you for tuning in. I'm Tim Walz. I'm a public school teacher and football coach from Mankato. I served 24 years in our nation's armed forces. I'm a husband to Gwen and dad to Hope and Gus, 17 and 12. And I'm running for governor of Minnesota because I believe deeply in the promise of this state. I believe that when we come together as one Minnesota, there is no challenge too great for us. Our future is bright, and together we can make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Well, thank you all for being here as well. I'm Jeff Johnson. My wife and I were born and raised in northwestern Minnesota. I've actually spent most of my adult life in the private sector, been self-employed for the past 19 years. And I'm running for governor to allow people to keep a little bit more of what they earn to spend on their own families or on their own businesses, and also to start holding government accountable again in Minnesota. We have lost that recently, and I think it's time for a change. So thank you all for watching.
Gentlemen, thank you. We have a lot of topics we want to get through tonight. We want to start with a focus talking about taxes, something Minnesotans certainly care a lot about. Mr. Johnson, to you first. You've said that you will not raise taxes. Consider this. Say the state budget forecast comes in next year showing the state of Minnesota with a $2 billion shortfall. What would you propose cutting to balance the budget, and really how would you address the shortfall?
Well, first of all, I'm not going to raise taxes. I've made that very clear, and that won't change depending upon the forecast, although it looks like the forecast, once again, is going to be pretty rosy for us. But how about we start with the $500 million that the legislative auditor has told us that we have provided to people who aren't eligible for welfare? Or we could move on from that and look at the $100 million that has been received by people through fraud through the child care system. Or we could look at the $40 million a year that we spend on MNsure, a program, a computer system that isn't working. We could move them to the federal system and save that money. And I could go through several other examples. There is $600–700 million right there. And I think just a little bit of competence, a little bit of accountability in government will go a long way to actually give some relief to our taxpayers. Now, after that, then let's start measuring the programs that we have in our state to figure out through audits which ones are actually working. We have thousands and thousands of programs. The ones that are actually working to change people's lives for the better, let's celebrate those. Let's bolster them. The ones that we're funding because they make politicians feel good, let's end those. And I know the response to this is going to be, well, Jeff doesn't want to spend as much money as I do, so he doesn't care, or he hates people. And I would argue just the opposite. I actually want our government programs to help people, for crying out loud. I don't know why we're putting up with this. And so I think it's time to hold government accountable. If we start there, it's going to be a lot easier to give tax relief to people.
Thank you. Mr. Walz, I ask that you consider the same scenario. Say, hopefully things are going well, but say the state is looking at a $2 billion shortfall. What do you propose doing for Minnesotans who say they're already stretched too thin, they don't want to raise taxes? What would you say the state should do to address the shortfall?
Yeah, well, before Governor Dayton took over, we had a $6 billion deficit that was caused by shifts and moving away, lack of investments. I do think the forecast will come in good. It's because what Minnesota always does is we invest. We invest in our people. There was a report came out last week from the Association of Civil Engineers that Minnesota has a C- in its transportation system and in its roads. We have hundreds of structurally deficient bridges. We rank 27th in the investment in those bridges. So I think it's irresponsible for government not to adapt as the situation shows itself, to start making smart investments. Certainly we want to get every efficiency we can, but that budget document is far more than a fiscal document. It's a moral document. Minnesota outperforms states that chose a different way of doing this in job growth, in personal income, in outcomes in health care. Those are all because we made smart investments in education, in public health, and now I think it's time for us to take an honest look at that. But those are things that leaders do. They assess and they move forward.
Mr. Walz, you've expressed support for spending on health care. You just mentioned transportation right now. Let's talk about where increases for that spending may come from. Are we considering tax increases, cuts from other programs?
Yeah, well, first of all, I have spoken that I think transportation with a gas tax, because it goes directly into transportation, we rank below the median average in what we invest, and we know that if we invest 10 cents a gallon that we meet where the experts are at. Because if you don't do that, and the idea is that it's going to come from somewhere else, I'm not willing to not invest where we need to. That money doesn't need to come from corrections officers. It doesn't need to come from nursing homes. So I think that's where we look, and we do look at efficiencies. Last year we gave about $50 million in tax cuts to premium tobacco companies. I don't think that's a smart investment in terms of the cost that it comes down the back end on healthcare costs. So again, if we keep people healthy, we keep them working, we grow that tax base, and you can lower taxes and provide the services. That's what Minnesota has done. That's what separates us from other states.
Mr. Johnson, you've said you'd make cuts to health and human services to reduce state spending. Tell us more specifically, what do you think you would cut specifically within those programs?
Well, again, what I have said is let's start with all the waste and actual fraud that we have in our system and, frankly, some of the incompetence that we've seen. You look at MNLARS, we've spent $100 million on MNLARS, and they're asking for more. And some are arguing, well, let's just give it to them, as opposed to saying, no, let's try something different. So again, we'll start there, but then let's actually audit the programs we have. We do spend more on welfare than pretty much any state that is similar to us. We have twice the average of spending per welfare recipient than the national average. And Minnesotans are generous, and we want to take care of people who need help. But I believe we have programs, and I think most Minnesotans agree with me, that we have programs that are not helping people become self-sufficient. That they, layer after layer of decades of programs, and we never go back to see, are some of these old ones not doing anything to help people? So let's take a look there, let's measure them, and let's say we're going to bolster those programs that are working and end those that don't. But with respect to Tim's answer, Tim, you've promised the world to everybody who's asked for more spending. Our last calculation was about $18.5 billion in spending increases, and that's missing probably many of the promises that you've made. You got to raise taxes in massive, massive ways to get there, and we know you've said you'll raise the gas tax 35%. But I still am curious, where else are we going to go to get all that money?
The 35% is 10 cents. Now, don't get me wrong here. There are two competing philosophies. What you're going to see tonight is two different visions of Minnesota. One that tells you what we can't do, and one that tells you what to fear. The other one that tells you what we do and we do together and how we grow. Jeff's philosophy of government is practiced in states like Mississippi, Louisiana, and more recently in Wisconsin. That's why we've reproduced them. Poverty rates have dropped here while they've grown in these other states. So in the long run, when we're improving lives and improving the economy, this is what happens when you get investment. So it is a philosophy, and just saying that it's rampant spending, that's fear-mongering. That's not true. What we know is if I can keep someone from getting sick or getting a preventable disease like diabetes, we save in the long run. If we can keep them working, we improve the tax base. This is what Minnesota differs from other states, and that's why we're growing and other states are not.
We want to move on to health care, so if that's all right, we'll move on to our next
May I
topic.
just say one last thing?
Go right ahead.
To argue that it's fear-mongering is preposterous. It is just being honest. It's actually doing the math to say that if we're going to promise billion upon billions in new spending, but we're never going to tell people which taxes we're going to raise to pay for it, that's not responsible at all. And so, I'm just trying to be honest with people, and sometimes people like the answer, and sometimes people don't like the answer. But let's be responsible with other people's money rather than promise the world to everyone and then figure it out later.
As we look for other answers, another topic that we have is health care. One of the biggest issues in this governor's race is indeed health care. In fact, our KSTP Survey USA poll shows it is the one issue that interests Minnesotans the most. Mr. Walz, it has been reported that you like a single-payer system that covers everyone. Mr. Johnson, it's been reported that you like market-based reforms with private companies. So, Mr. Walz, tell us about the system that you like.
Yeah, first of all, let's start out with this, that healthcare is the most personal thing that people need. Well, first of all, they don't want to have to use it. And then if they do have to use it, they want it to be accessible, quality, and they don't want to go broke. This nation spends 20% of our GDP on healthcare. That's twice as much as any other industrialized nation, and we get half the results for that. So I think a path to simplify people who aren't treating people who are shuffling papers. We saw this week, for the first time after we undermined the ACA, we had 16,000 Minnesotans kicked off health insurance, and United Healthcare profits went up 28%. So what you need to do, first of all, is understand when you get people health insurance, you keep them healthy by preventative care, and you save money in the long run. In Minnesota, we're a long ways down that path. We have the highest insured rate and we have the highest, best health outcomes. So what we need to do is we need to make sure those people who, about 5% that are dropping off, we allow them to buy into the Minnesota care system. That system is set up. They buy into it at cost. It doesn't add to the state. And we get them healthy, and then we start doing what Minnesotans can do. Instead of talking all these years about health insurance reform, let's start curing diseases. Let's start focusing on the front end. Let's start preventing those things.
So, Mr. Johnson, tell us about the system that you like.
Sure. Before Obamacare, before the ACA, Minnesota had the best health care in America. You could go anywhere, and we would be told that. Now we've kind of been pulled down somewhere to the middle. And so my belief is you got two sets of issues. Number one, we have to make sure we continue to take care of people in this state who need help. Minnesota has done that better than any state in the country for decades now, and we will continue to when I'm governor. And that means making sure people who can't afford insurance actually are helped so that they can afford insurance, and continuing to guarantee affordable coverage for those with pre-existing conditions, despite what the commercials on television will tell you, which have been found to be completely false. But that's only part of the equation, and sometimes people just talk about that part. The other part is everybody else, which is still the vast majority, people who are paying for their own insurance or with their employer are paying for their insurance, and they're getting killed in Minnesota right now. Particularly in the last decade or so, we've seen premiums skyrocket, we've seen deductibles skyrocket, we've seen people lose their doctors. So what we have to do is force more competition into the system against the current insurers, and then create more options and more choices for people, because that's the only thing that will bring costs down.
So, Mr. Johnson, are you saying that if you have a pre-existing condition, you're still going to get coverage?
Absolutely, and we've done that in Minnesota.
Even with a private company?
No, we will reinstate what we did so well before, which was the high-risk pool, which frankly many states are now saying, oh, we should have a high-risk pool instead of Obamacare because it's not working. And we did that. Minnesota did that 30 years ago, and it was actually working quite well, and it made sure that those with pre-existing conditions had affordable coverage.
This is simply incorrect, and numerous health organizations, including the Mankato Free Press, took Commissioner Johnson to task over this. And here's what this becomes very personal. There's a young woman in the audience tonight, Kelly, diagnosed at 20 with a brain tumor. Keep in mind, prior to the ACA, discrimination of pre-existing conditions was the norm. There is no way possible, by not having people buy into the system, making sure we have everyone covered, and the protections that are in there, the repeal of this undermines that. So be very clear about this. Kelly is here because she understands if we move away from the current system and choose to go in the direction of this fantasy world that there's a free market in healthcare, Kelly will lose her health insurance, and she is 2 years in recovery from brain cancer. This is personal for people.
There is not a free market in healthcare, and that's part of the problem. And honestly, I don't know that there will ever be a free market in healthcare, but let's at least give people more options. And this business about you're going to lose pre-existing condition coverage if someone is governor, it's the template that certain groups are using all over the country against Republicans, regardless of what our position is. But I think we need to move back to where Tim wants to go. Now he's back to Minnesota Care for All. I saw a few days ago it was single payer, and before that it was something else, and I'm not sure where you're at. Single payer means that we all lose our health coverage and everyone is forced onto a government plan.
Does this mean that the government will control a person's health care?
That's incorrect, and these are personal physicians. What we know is that the payer, and they're most of the people, 40% of the people probably in this room, use either Medicare or the VA system. What it means is, and certainly we're going to need the federal government to do this, but the fact of the matter is that the money that is being spent in health care, not delivering care, not going to the patient, when they talk about a government takeover, these are private doctors, and putting the power back between the doctor and the patient to make decisions that do not cipher off hundreds of billions of dollars to insurance companies that add nothing to this. Again, this fallacy that there's going to be, there's a fundamental difference that I think needs to be stated here. I believe health care is a basic human right. I've never heard Jeff state that.
So let's be honest about what single payer is, because you can say there are still private doctors, but your insurance is gone. We all lose our health insurance, and if you happen to kind of like your health insurance and don't want the VA for all, which essentially is what this is, then that would be a bad move for you. It would also send a lot of rural hospitals out of business. You'll be driving an hour, hour and a half for a prenatal coverage.
So you guys have very different opinions on what to do and where to go with health care. Quick question about health care. So KSTP reported in January that according to a study to the Minnesota Department of Health, a knee replacement in 2015 cost anywhere from $6,000 to $47,000, depending on where you went to the hospital. So what's the best way to gain some transparency in hospital pricing?
Yeah, this piece is something important. And I think Jeff and I agree on this, on transparency and pricing, to put it forward. But that's the fallacy in that there's a free market in this, the idea. And this is what's different about going back to a la carte or people not being covered. And this has been tried. So, I mean, we've seen this. I've spent my time trying to add people onto this, but the real focus is the preventative care on the front end and the cost reductions. Those come by making sure people don't get chronic and making sure we're doing the research on the front end. So price transparency does matter.
Mr. Johnson.
And again, we do agree on this. It's one of those areas where we actually agree on something, and that is that we need more transparency, and we might have to force that transparency. But then we also have to give consumers some incentive to care about what the cost is, and if they have more choices and more options, they're going to care about it.
Hard to search when you have an appendectomy, hard to search when you have brain cancer. Those are things that why we have to have people covered.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Let's talk about jobs and the economy. City of Minneapolis recently passed a $15 an hour minimum wage, and some other cities appear to be heading in that direction, or at least discussing it. Some state leaders would like to see the state of Minnesota adopt a $15 an hour minimum wage. Mr. Walz, should the minimum wage be an issue tackled at the state level? Should cities be making this decision on their own? And if $15 isn't the answer, what is the right answer?
Well, first of all, it needs to be a living wage or a housing wage for people to be able to get by. In some parts, that may be enough, but that's pushing it right now. I think what we understand is the state should set this. It should be a way to handle it, but I also respect local entities. If the state is going to be paralyzed, they need to do what is right for folks. And again, the economy grows. The best stimulus plan in the world is extra money in a middle-class person's pocket. And the idea right now where people in some cases are spending 60 to 70% of their income just for housing, if they can find that, doesn't work. So one of the big problems with the housing crisis is we simply have wages that are too low to be able to get there. And certainly in an economy that has low unemployment, rates are rising. I don't disagree with that. But I think when we set a standard and a floor so that people have the capacity to, you should not in this state be working a full-time job and not be able to provide basic housing, basic food, and basic services. I think that is something that all of us can agree on.
So if a bill comes to your desk of the state of Minnesota, would it implement?
Yes, and I think that's the way to do it, is to work through the legislatures and have the compromises and get done. But that has not been able to be done. We've seen a paralyzed race to the bottom, and then we saw cities take it upon themselves. I do agree that that makes it a little more complicated, but I respect those local authorities to make the decisions they need to make.
And Mr. Johnson, should the minimum wage be a discussion at the state level? Should cities tackle it?
Well, I'll actually answer the question. It should be at the state level. I'm a local control guy. I think we all talk about that as politicians, but I do believe it unless what the local government is doing is going to have some significant effect on the economy of the entire state. And I would say having a patchwork of minimum wage throughout the state or a patchwork of labor regulations throughout the state is going to cause a problem for our entire economy and certainly for a lot of our small employers. So I would support preemption there. Having said that, there are a lot of things that city governments might do that I might disagree with. The city of Minneapolis passed a ban on plastic bags in their grocery stores. And I think the legislature tried to say we're going to preempt that and say you can't do it. I might think that's stupid, but it's not my job as governor to say that the city of Minneapolis can't do stupid things, or I'd be very busy. And so those sorts of things are left to them. But if it has an effect on the entire state, then the state should be setting it.
Let's talk about the skilled workforce here in the state of Minnesota. We've got a reportage of we don't have enough skilled workers here in Minnesota to fill the jobs that are open. So what can the state do to attract and to keep more skilled workers and to prepare students and young workers to fill those positions now and going forward? Mr. Johnson?
So part of this is simply a training gap, and we need to make sure there's a lot government can do to connect our schools up with our businesses, whether they're high schools or whether they're tech schools or colleges, to make sure our kids are learning the skills that our employers believe they will need in a year or 10 years from now. And some communities are actually doing a great job of that. I could give you examples, but we need to encourage that. But to me, this is a much bigger issue. It's almost a cultural issue right now. I live in Plymouth, and I can tell you that if my son, who is a senior in high school and is trying to decide what to do next, he will probably go to college, but there are other options. If he chooses something other than a 4-year degree, we are going to have some of our friends who feel sorry for us. They're going to say, well, he didn't get a 4-year degree, so he's not going to be successful. And that just makes me sad, because it's untrue. There's this tremendous need for people with skills that they could get at a technical college or through an apprenticeship program. A governor can help change that culture by celebrating these opportunities and making sure parents understand that they are out there and you don't have to have a 4-year degree to succeed in it.
Mr. Walz, what does the state do about
Yeah,
this
there's
shortage?
several factors, and this expands across all the technical trades. And I agree with Jeff on this. I do feel sorry for your friends having that attitude, though, because the nobleness of the trades is where our families came from, and that builds the middle class. But what we have to understand here is there's several things happening. We cannot afford in this state to allow any child to slip through the cracks. And while we do an incredible job of educating our students, especially if they're white, we have a problem in that achievement gap in children of color. We know there's resources out there and best practices like equity coaches and making sure we're putting teachers in front of them that understand those cultural competencies. That ensures that what we know is a demographic certainty. In the next 25 years, 70% of our workforce is going to come from communities of color. That includes immigration. Immigrants who come here, choose to work, try to live the American dream, and participate in that. We are an aging population. The average age of an agriculture worker in southern Minnesota is 58 years. We're going to have to make sure those opportunities are there and we start to provide across the board. And the thing that we're struggling with here is we have last year only 1,000 of our students took the advanced placement computer science class. We're going to have to start thinking for the future. We're going to have to start investing and thinking where we're going to go. Start skating to where the puck's going to be instead of playing last year.
So could we talk about the achievement gap for
right
a second,
ahead.
since Tim brought it up? Because to me, the achievement gap between white students and students of color in our education system is possibly the biggest moral value issue we have right now in Minnesota. We have had the worst, or one of the worst, achievement gaps in Minnesota in the country for 30 or 40 years. And we've been wringing our hands about it, and we've been throwing money at it, and it doesn't get any better. We just had a report come out a few weeks ago that said, no, we're still one of the worst, if not the worst, in the country. And you know, my belief is if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, decade after decade, and nothing gets better, maybe we should try something different, because it's not just about more money. Money's important in education, but we have to be looking at reforms. We have to be looking at giving parents more control. You're not going to see any of that cutting-edge reform that we had 20 or 30 years ago in education coming from Tim Walz, but you will from me, because I don't think we can leave these kids behind anymore.
I'd just like to say, giving control to parents where 15% of our kids in Minneapolis are homeless and sleep in cars is not control. Children do not come in pieces. Jeff talking about cutting health and human services to somehow mythically fix roads or something with it are the very things that happen. I know as a 20-year teacher that if a child comes to my classroom, they will not learn geography if they slept in a car the night before. They will not learn geography if they're hungry. They will not learn geography if they have a toothache. So my proposal is, and we're seeing it work, whether it's in Duluth or right here in the Twin Cities, Washington Magnet School, 90% children of color, 90% free and reduced lunch, 90% graduation rates, because we approach it as full-service community schools that start to understand when we invest in these children and we invest in their families, giving them a voucher when they don't have a car, they don't have a home, they don't have the capacity to research, is not the way to go. That's a privatization that leads to a death spiral in the very places that can break this.
So you're making a pretty huge jump there from me saying let's give some more control to parents to a voucher system. Maybe that's part of what we do, but let's look to other states, because almost everyone is doing it better than us, and let's start trying things. And again, I know I've seen your answer to the Education Minnesota questionnaire. You answered all 84 questions the way they wanted, which said a ton more money, but no cutting-edge reform, no accountability, nothing different, more of the same, and we're going to keep leaving these kids behind if we don't try something new.
Some of that is I spent 20 years in the classroom and Jeff spent none. So some of this is practical application of understanding when you see these come to you, not just ideological, but real people's lives.
All right, I want to ask you one more question about the economy. We'll get back to that next year. We have some more education to get to. There are concerns we could be heading into a trade war that could have a significant impact on Minnesota farmers, manufacturers, miners. What are you prepared to do to help these groups if they are negatively impacted? Mr. Johnson.
Well, first of all, here's where I have a difference in policy with the current administration. I tend to be more of a free trader than President Trump is, and I have shared that with him and will continue to share that with him if I'm governor. I believe we should encourage trade as opposed to encouraging barriers, and I know he's looking at the long game here, and it seems to be working to a certain extent, but if this lasts much longer, we've got farmers that are just getting killed by this, and it's not the way to go. I will be, as governor, the chief salesman, the chief cheerleader of everything we do in this state, every product we make or grow. And I think that's a really key job of our governor, whether it's trade missions overseas or making sure the rest of the country understands what we do so well in this state. I see that as a very key job for me.
Mr. Wells?
Yeah, well, these trade policies are horrific. They were not done strategically. There's no doubt that every trade policy should be improved upon, but especially our agricultural producers are in dire straits because of this. We've worked really hard to open those markets. We've worked really hard to be smart about how we do that. As governor, I'll ensure that we make sure that those trade relations are kept up. That's by opening and having those offices in Taiwan, in Australia, to make sure those things continue on. But this is where we differ. This is where the investments at the University of Minnesota into agricultural research. I visited a company in Bloomington called Centera. They're a drone company, but that's not just what they do. It's the high-tech ability of their sensors that are on board. This is a company now that is able to fly over a field and particular weed by wavelength, find that weed, send that to the John Deere tractor. The tractor goes out and sprays that one weed. These are ways that bring efficiencies into farming. These are ways that bring profits to farming. These are the ways that clean water. This idea that farmers don't want to clean water is nonsense, that they want to do exactly that. And these are the ways that that energy that happens between the University of Minnesota, between our private entities, and between growth adds to those value added. We need to continue to foster our biofuels. We need to continue to use these products in a smart way, because at the same time we address climate change, we create an economy here that feeds right back into that, so that if we have a boneheaded decision made from the administration, we're able to weather that because of the work that our folks did.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
So Minnesota has a diverse population. We have many people that are born in other countries. Refugee resettlement, Mr. Walls, what would you do with it?
First of all, there is a long, proud tradition in this state. Minnesota is not just a state that benefits from immigration, which we do. We are an immigrant state. The ability to show the compassion, but to have people here and understand this. If you travel to Worthington, you will not find an empty storefront because of the diversity what's there. About making sure that people have that capacity to get here, to pay the safety that we have provided, do so in a responsible manner to make sure who's coming here, but then allow people and understand this is a welcoming community that allows them to contribute to us. This is over $50 billion into the economy from the immigrant community, from the jobs they create and the growth that comes out of that. Minnesota's past, Minnesota's present, and Minnesota's future is dependent on immigration. It is dependent on us being seen as a place where you can not just find refuge from war and terror, but you can go through the process to get here and live the American dream. That's what I think we've been predicated on.
So, Mr. Johnson, refugee resettlement.
Sure, we do have a very proud history here, and we've got a lot of success stories to tell about wonderful immigrants who have come here and refugees who have come here. But when I see a program that a lot of people believe is not working, where they're raising legitimate issues about it, my answer is not let's pretend like there's no problem or maybe even demonize them for raising the issue, but it's actually, as government, let's look at it and let's have the discussion. Let's have the debate. And so with respect to refugee resettlement, right now we have communities in Minnesota where a lot of people are saying the cost is extreme. We know that it costs hundreds of millions of dollars at the state level, but we don't know what it costs for schools, for counties, for cities. And we have people saying, how much is it, so we can have the discussion? And the answer is, we don't know, stop asking, you're racist. That is so wrong. We can't even discuss this anymore. So my thought is, let's have the discussion. Let's pause refugee resettlement. Let's find out what the costs are. Let's also look at why some of our refugees aren't achieving the American dream right now. We see that with our unemployment rate of some Somali men. It's much, much, much higher than the rest of the state. Why is that? Let's figure it out, and then let's have the discussion as a community about how to move forward.
And by pause, what do you mean?
I mean, well, I don't get to decide that as governor, but I will go out to to D.C. and talk to the administration and say, look at what we have done. We've been more generous than any state in the country by a lot, and right now we have a lot of questions. So we want to end our participation, at least for now, until we figure this out.
Mr. Walls?
We are better for our immigrant community. We're better for the kindness this state has shown, and going out and asking what are the problems in the system. We do agree on this. Immigration is the federal government's responsibility, and it has been broken since we had a comprehensive bill pass the United States Senate, and it was never brought to a vote in the House. It passed with over 70 votes in the United States Senate. So this issue of dealing with comprehensive immigration reform is absolutely critical. But the messages are being sent. We were out in Wilmer last week with a young woman sitting in the front row who is one of those refugees, who is achieving the American dream. And when she hears the rhetoric, it makes them wonder what type of state we are. And let's be very clear. The cost benefit in terms of economic gain to Minnesota is a plus because of immigration.
So Mr. Johnson.
I want to respond to that because you talk about the horrible rhetoric. Did you listen to what I just said? I think that we have been welcoming and we will continue to be welcoming. But there are people that have real concerns about our refugee resettlement program. And to me, the response of government should not be, as what our current governor said, if you question this, you should move to another state, or you're a racist or a white supremacist, which I get every day, but rather it should be, okay, let's talk about this. But unfortunately in our society right now, we cannot have discussions about anything to do with race, about anything to do with religion, or about anything to do with immigration. Because if you don't hold a certain view, the other side tries to shut you down by calling you the absolute worst name in the book, in my opinion, which is racist.
Well,
that
Jeff,
is sad.
I've never done that, but I think a lot of this rhetoric comes from the current occupant of the White House, someone who Jeff has said he agrees the direction he's taking the country, refused to criticize those comments, and has ginned this up to the point where that's where it gets to. As governor of Minnesota, I will stand up for our citizens. I will stand up for our residents. I will stand up for our immigrants to the kind of rhetoric that undermines who we are, undermines the capacity to find common ground.
And as will I, but I also think we have to end this practice of not being able to even have these discussions. I think that's sad.
So let me ask you this. What about a sanctuary state? Mr. Johnson, should we be one?
Absolutely not. And then here's one of many places where we fundamentally disagree. Sanctuary state, for those who don't understand it, says that the state of Minnesota becomes a safe space for any illegal immigrant who wants to come here, including ones who have criminal records outside of just entering the country illegally. We would be the only one in the upper Midwest. We would become a magnet. And we have a lot of people in this state right now who are here legally who probably should be being treated better by their government than they are. But now that's going to get much worse. Think about how that'll affect our schools and our class sizes, for example.
Mr. Walz?
Well, first of all, this is Jeff's definition of this. We're very clear about this. The Supreme Court and everyone has said the federal government's responsibility is for immigration and immigration enforcement. Local law enforcement is to keep our communities safe. Now, I want to say, I spent 24 years in uniform on state and national security issues. If you do a violent crime, you're going to go to prison, no matter who you are. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about in communities where someone is here waiting for their status to go up, and they have no other violation, but they report your house being broken into, they will then be picked up for a violation. Or if they were sex trafficked, or if they were a victim of domestic abuse. They are not reporting, and in places where they feel that pressure, crime goes up. It does nothing to reduce undocumented immigration, and it ends up with fear. What we're saying here is, let's ask and have the federal government do their responsibility. If someone picked up and has committed a violent crime, they will follow through that law. But to tell people that you're encouraging people to come here who are criminals, and we don't care about that, is an insult to 24 years of doing this for myself, but it's an insult to all of the people in Minnesota who say, of course we're not going to do that. What we're saying is, why are we taking precious resources away when the federal government should be doing their responsibility?
Mr. Johnson?
Well, Tim, just be honest with people. This is a promise you had to make to win your primary, and now you're kind of stuck with it. And it is on the far extreme even of your own party. And you can pretend like it's something that it's not, but folks, just go out there and do reading as to what a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state is. I entirely agree. We should not be asking our police officers to do the job of the federal government, to be enforcing immigration laws, and I won't allow them to do that. But we should allow them to cooperate with federal officials. Well, that's not what a sanctuary state is. And by the way, when you talk about law enforcement, I just stood up with the Minneapolis Police Federation, and they endorsed me. And in the past, they've endorsed Democrats, and they said this is one of the reasons. They believe that becoming a sanctuary state would make their job much harder.
The vast majority of law enforcement disagrees with this position, by the way.
Minneapolis
police can make their decision. I don't know if Jeff has a Jeff Johnson definition library, but the fact of the matter is that description of what he just said is exactly what we're saying. Don't go out there and do that out of your way because it creates fear in there. Let me say very clearly again, if you commit a violent crime, regardless of your status in any way, you are going to prison. That is very clear. That has never been a position I've taken any other way. So,
Well, but if you come here and you've committed violent crimes in the past and you happen to be an illegal immigrant, we're going to welcome you. And we're
start here. More broadly, there is a bit of a discussion going on right now about the role of schools. Schools have become a point of access for social services in addition to providing a high-quality education. So what role do you believe schools should play here in Minnesota? Mr. Walz.
well, I do believe that full-service community schools, what you're describing in that, makes great sense, especially in communities of need. It goes back to that idea that children do not come in pieces. What we know is, and this is something that is both tragic and it gives us opportunity, we know in kindergarten by vocabulary with pretty good certainty if we have a school to prison pipeline. If we want to make sure that we don't continue to explode and have the largest number of folks incarcerated, the fix on that is on the front end. And it's an understanding that these children come from positions of trauma. They may be seeing trauma daily. It may be historical trauma. They're coming from positions of economic poverty. They're coming from positions where, quite honestly, their parents don't have the resources to be able to get that done. What we've seen is when we have full-service community schools where we have placement for housing, where we have those abilities to get job placements, where we have clinics right in the school like we see in Duluth that takes care of that little toothache and gets that student back to learning. That is how we not only improve the lives of those children, improve our workforce, it makes sense and saves money. So I think the role has always been that the school is not going to fix all of societal ills alone, but when we work together in a smart manner, the results are pretty staggering.
Mr. Johnson, what do you believe the role of schools should be here in Minnesota?
Well, first and foremost, it should be to teach our kids and not to be other things. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't cooperate as differing levels of government. We certainly do that in Hennepin County with the schools in our county, and I think if we have some common sense about it, I think that is a very good thing, because you do have a lot of kids that have needs that could be served if we had other agencies in place. But I think first and foremost, we got to educate our kids. And I will tell you a couple things that I talk about, at least what I hear from school board members and principals and teachers, is number one, our funding formula is an abomination. No one understands it. There are literally one or two people in St. Paul who gets it, because we have created this system over 30 or 40 years of political deals to pass the K-12 omnibus bill instead of what's most important for kids. So I think we should radically simplify that. I think we should start removing some of the many mandates that state government has placed on our local school districts, because I think our local folks can make much better decisions than state bureaucrats or politicians can about our kids. And then I think we should free up administrations and school boards to reward and promote the best teachers in their schools. We're tying their hands right now, and there is nothing more important other than family that will predict the success of a kid than a teacher.
You know what?
I'll agree with two of the three of those. Jeff's right on the simplification of the funding formula, making sure that we understand that different parts of the state, understanding on that funding formula to not adjust it to inflation is a cut every year to those school districts. That's why we're $618 behind per pupil in the St. Paul school districts, and they're going back with referendum. A referendum in some districts means a new football stadium with turf. A referendum in greater Minnesota many times means a leaky roof. So I agree with him on that. And the one thing, though, that I would say, administrators do have the capacity to do what they need to do with teachers, but you're never going to fire your way to a great education system. The reason Minnesota attracts teachers is because we lift them up and respect them. We compensate them fairly, and we give them the capacity to do what they need to do. But I do agree with Jeff that we need to give that control to those teachers in those classrooms and let them move forward.
You just mentioned referendum. Let's talk about that a little more. You know, we have districts all around the state of Minnesota who have operating levies, referenda coming up in the November ballot. Should the state be doing more to support these local districts, or is this something where the local districts really need to be focusing themselves? Mr. Johnson?
Well, I think we actually have, or had, something that was rather unique around the country in the way we equalized our levies and levy referendum in Minnesota, and I've always supported that, and I think maybe we've moved back from that a bit and would be quite open to increasing that, so that we're helping the school districts that don't have the tax base to actually, you know, compete with some of the schools that do. So, yeah, I think there's probably a bigger role for the state there.
I agree with Jeff on that we do need to rechange that. It was the Minnesota Medical that was predicated on this idea that no matter where you lived, we were going to give you that quality education that's called for in the Minnesota Constitution. But it's also about having that local workforce well trained. But this is when the state started pulling back. The same issue starts to show itself in when we cut back under local government aid, LGA. And what you end up seeing is you see cities like Duluth that have to pass sales taxes to build their streets because we cut back on local government aid. And here's what I can tell you. When Duluth is thriving, Mankato is thriving. When St. Paul is thriving, Moorhead is thriving. And one of the things that we did in Minnesota was this mechanism of local government aid that allowed them to do that. It's the same theory that went into school funding to make sure there was an equalization. And that's what we can do, because asking these districts to go back time and time again with a smaller tax base, we did fix a little bit of it on the agricultural land, but it is still an incredible problem. And that creates an unequal distribution of workforce, an undistribution of talent, and to be quite honest, it's morally wrong for us to say a child, just because they're in greater Minnesota, can't have the same opportunities.
Mr. Johnson?
No,
Do you want to
I
respond?
think we actually agree on that. I think that is, I know it's a surprise, but...
Good, because we've got more topics to cover.
Because we are one state. I mean, as a guy who grew up in Detroit Lakes and went to the public schools there, my wife's from Crookston and went to the public schools there are parts of the state where it's harder to do some of this work, and if we can help, we should.
So let's talk a little bit about transportation. You guys have both made this a talking point in your campaign appearances. We all want to spend less time in traffic. We all want better roads. We want strong bridges. Mr. Walz, do you support light rail?
I do.
Mr. Johnson, do you support light rail?
I have not supported the light rail projects we've seen so far because the cost-benefit analysis is terrible on them.
Do you agree?
No, I don't agree that
Why?
in the long run. Well, the investments in anything, this idea that we're subsidizing light rail, we subsidize air travel, we subsidize highways. The idea is that transit, what it does, especially in densely populated urban areas, makes sense to move people. And if light rail is the best way and it's the choice locally, we're seeing that it's very efficient, it's starting to work where it needs to, and we see the economic growth that springs up along the light rail line, if you look at the Green Line and some of those things, so it makes sense. But what we're missing here is we start to pit the state against one another. And this is where we're going to have a governor, and this is what my job is to bridge that gap. And one of the things is when we started getting into this fight that it was highways and bridges versus transit in urban areas, that's where we started falling down on everything. We started pitting it out that it made no difference. That transit system that moves workers in the Twin Cities area benefits and provides the capacity to grow the economy so that we can fund the highways in southern Minnesota. So these are real implications that make a difference.
So, yes, everybody does want much better roads. It's driving me crazy driving around the Twin Cities right now, and I think probably everyone in this room and watching would say the same thing. And it doesn't seem that we're getting a lot better, and part of the reason is that we can't focus on what's most important in government. This is one area. I could give you 23 other examples, but transportation is a great example. And I bring up my boys as a comparison to this. I've got two teenage boys, and I remember when they would come home from school 6, 8, 10 years ago, and I'd say, okay, time to sit down and do your homework. And they'd say, well, can I watch TV? And I'd say, no, focus. Can I put my earphones in? No, focus. And government has become like a teenage boy in the area of transportation. We don't focus on what people want and need the most, which is first and foremost roads and bridges, and then where we need transit, because we do, then let's at least focus on those forms of transit that are actually efficient and effective, like a world-class bus system that costs a fraction of what these trains cost, or trolleys now, which is what we want to bring back in Minneapolis.
So how are we going to pay either way? How are we going to fund these things?
I've already proposed my proposal, and certainly on the highway side of things. It's again, we know the backlog on this is horrific, and I want to be very clear about this. There are implications that are so real for not doing this. When I was teaching 7th grade basketball, I had a young man named Ben. He was my next-door neighbor. When the police and his mom, Mary, came in to tell him that someone on Highway 14, and this is at maybe 94 in Rogers, every one of your listeners tonight has their nightmare story. It's Highway 14 in southern Minnesota, had tried to pass, hit his dad, Charlie, head on and killed him. That highway had been neglected. It's still continuing to be neglected. We've worked very hard to make it 4-lane, but these are things that are not just about economic growth, they're about safety, and we have chosen to take this fight and not invest what's needed. The experts are telling us X number of dollars. They told us that to do the highways and to get them up, it would take 10 cents.
And yes, the highways, that highway has been neglected, as have many other highways, but it's not because government isn't taking enough money from people. It's because government can't focus on what people need the most, and make sure we're focusing our transit on those areas that are effective and efficient. So I don't think we need a tax increase, period, including a gas tax increase. We've seen a 53% increase in spending in 8 years. We've seen massive tax increases in the last 8 years. And to argue that we can't fill the potholes, I think that is a true failure in government and leadership.
Can the follow-up be specifically where the cuts will come from?
We've already answered that, but do you want me to tell you again?
Sure.
Number one, government is unaccountable. We are wasting, and I know you don't believe that there's any waste in government or any fat in government.
I'm waiting for the exact program.
$500 million in people who are receiving benefits that aren't eligible for them. Another $100 million at least a year in child care fraud. We're seeing $30 million in uncollected Minnesota care premiums. MNsure cost, what, $500 million to build? It still doesn't work, so we're spending $40 million a year on that. And I could continue to go down the list, but let's at least start there, and then let's focus on what actually matters to people, rather than spending hundreds of millions of dollars on rebuilding the Minneapolis and St. Paul streetcar system, which is what we're starting to do right now. Let's say, yeah, that's cool, but let's focus on what actually works for people first.
Okay. So, well, when you're focusing on that and you talk about a world-class bus system, walk me through what does that mean to the average Minnesotan? Tell me how does a day work like that? What's a world-class bus system?
The best bus system in the world. And frankly, we don't have it right now because we're diverting so much money to other things. And so, bus rapid transit, for example, it's not cheap. I've actually supported bus rapid transit at the county level because it requires a fraction of the subsidy that a train does going to the same area, and it carries the same number of people. And the beauty of a bus system is that you don't spend billions to build it, and you can actually move the route as people move or as businesses move, rather than spending billions to build a fixed rail line, and then you're stuck with it.
Transit's multimodal. We need all of the above. This issue of township bridges, the issue of highways, the issue of bus. Rural transit is a big issue, that the bus systems that serve Region 9 around Mankato are highly effective. But the growth that comes out of, and when local decision makers are making the decision on transit lines, it's going to take an all of the above approach. But it's going to take the commitment and the investment to understand that Minnesota benefits when all parts of Minnesota benefit.
And all of the above, as I hear it from you, means we're going to spend massive amounts of money on systems that are inefficient because somebody has said they like that better. And we've got to be more careful with other people's money in government right now.
Okay, thank you.
We want to move on to mining. Mr. Johnson, you said you would advocate for copper nickel mining projects in northern Minnesota. Do you support Polymet, Twin Metals, and what is your response to Minnesotans who are concerned about the impact it'll have on the environment?
Yeah, absolutely. And if I didn't believe we could do this in a way that will protect the environment, then I wouldn't support it. But I will be an advocate for copper nickel mining, just as I'll be an advocate for frac sand mining or timber or pipelines in northern Minnesota, because those are all the private sector creating good jobs for people who are desperate for good jobs right now. And we have, with respect to mining, we have regulatory requirements at the federal and state level that are extremely rigorous. Some would argue too rigorous. I would not. I think that's just fine. But I'm going to be an advocate to move these businesses through that process, not throw up new politically motivated roadblocks, as we have seen from this administration, not creating shortcuts for them either. But if they can get through that process, I'm going to be a big advocate to get this done, because it is private sector, good-paying jobs for Minnesotans.
Yeah, we're not too far off on this. I think you follow the science to make sure. And be very clear, copper nickel mining is a very dangerous proposition, and not all mines are the same. The issue of Polymet is many years down the permitting process. Minnesota must make sure we have the most stringent environmental protections permitting process. And then the important piece of this is the liability fund that's bankrupt-proof if it's there. But what I think it's missed in this is pitting one group against another. To be very clear, the folks who do this mining, they care deeply about clean water. And the folks who care about the clean water care deeply about the jobs and the growth that are there. So Minnesota has fueled the growth around the world. Copper nickel mining. Copper is incredibly important to a clean energy economy as we have to address climate change as it's real. And I think Minnesota's capacity to be able to do that, as long as we're making sure the safeguards are in place, we're not cutting corners, we're making sure that that happens.
Mr. Walz, in that same vein, with these two groups that seem to always be against one another, let's talk about oil pipelines. Should the oil pipeline system be expanded, replace aging lines, maybe expand the system, and how do you balance it? How do you balance the environmental concerns, the jobs, and determine where they go?
No, it's a great question, and it's what leadership looks like. It's what I've been able to do in Congress of striking those balances between economic activities and environmental growth. I have voted for pipelines, and I have voted against them. The real question is, and I think where leadership shows on this, is bringing those groups together in a collaborative manner on the front end, making sure that they were included in this, making sure our tribal, our sovereign nations have a say in how these things are built, and then working to make sure that the environmental impact statements, again, are done right. I do understand that we have 2.4 million miles of pipeline. I served on the Transportation Committee and PHMSA, the Pipelines and Hazardous Material, if it makes sense to do it, but we have to be very cognizant about where they're running, who they're running through, making sure they're in the right places environmentally and soundly, but they can. And I think that's one of the reasons the folks who built these things support my candidacy. The folks who also care about the environment are supporting us. So you can find those compromises to get it done.
Mr. Johnson?
Well, I will be an advocate for pipelines as well, particularly Line 3. We need to get that done. It's actually more environmentally safe than if we don't do it. And again, it's private sector jobs. And Tim, I will tell you, I give you credit. You are better than any politician I know at answering a question without answering the question, because that was 90 seconds of happiness, and I don't know exactly what you'll do with Line 3. I know probably where your running mate is because she was protesting the last pipeline, but I still don't know where you are on Line 3. Are you going to move it forward and get it done?
I think the listeners were very clear about it, so yeah.
I doubt it.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're looking for some shorter answers. We're running low on time on these next couple of questions, okay? So we want to try to get through as many as we can. So some public health questions. Let's talk about opioids. They're a growing problem across the country, here in Minnesota as well. According to the Minnesota Department of Health, there were 401 deaths in 2017 due to opioids. Really more than one a day if you look at it that way. So, Mr. Johnson, how do you fix this? How do you address this?
It's actually something I did when I was in the House. I, along with Julie Rosen over in the Senate, was chief author of the anti-meth bill, or the meth lab bill. It was the most comprehensive meth bill that had ever been passed in the country. It became a model for other states, and it actually worked. And unfortunately, now we're having new problems come in with respect to meth. But this is the same thing. If we don't do this in a comprehensive way, it's not going to get done. So that means you have to be looking at education, you have to be looking at prevention, you have to look at treatment, and you have to look at the law enforcement side of things, because a lot of this opioid problem now, it's not just prescription drugs, it's heroin and it's fentanyl. And unfortunately, there was a bipartisan, not solution during this last session, but a bill that came together from both sides that actually moved us in the right direction, and it ended up on the cutting room floor in the chaos at the end of session, which, by the way, we should not be accepting anymore.
Mr. Walz?
Yeah, no, I think Jeff and I agree on this, and I think most Minnesotans do. This is a scourge that has to be addressed. It's one of the things on leadership. The first piece of legislation I was able to pass in the United States Congress was a step pain management bill dealing with opioid overprescription at the VA, and I gave a floor speech back then that talked about if we don't get a handle on this, we're going to have an epidemic on our hands. I think it makes sense on the front end of making sure that we're prescribing in the right manner, making sure we're giving the tools to law enforcement, making sure that we're asking for the folks who are responsible for creating these, and these are powerful drugs that help people, but they also need to be part of the solution, so that overprescription, and then making sure we're doing culturally competent drug interdictions that make sure that the places hardest hit, which are our 11 sovereign nations, our indigenous people, making sure that they have the capacity to do the treatments in the way that makes sense to them.
Okay, thank you.
You two have a few places you agree, a few places you disagree. I want to ask you this now. If you win, but your party does not lead in the House and the Senate, what do you think you'll do to work together to get things done, and will you be willing to compromise? Mr. Johnson?
Well, of course, and you don't accomplish anything in government. Honestly, even if it's all Republican control, if I'm not working with the other side, anything that I get done is going to be very short-lived. If we pass everything on a party line vote, the Democrats are going to be in charge at some point, and they'll just switch it all back. So if If I want to make lasting change, because I think we need fundamental change to the status quo in this state, if I want it to last past me, I better get some Democrats on board. And I'm a relationship guy. You can ask anybody who's worked with me either on the county board, where I'm in a minority of one, or in the House when I was actually in the majority, but with the DFL Senate. If you can't form and maintain those relationships, even when you disagree, you're not going to have any success in government.
This is where leadership matters, and the reputation that I have of authoring, moving things through, and having them signed by both presidents of both parties, whether they be the GI Bill, whether it's addressing crop insurance in a farm bill, or whether it's dealing with veteran suicide. It's the capacity to bring people together and to lead, to be able to lead. I've led on the football field, I led in uniform, and I think leading in Congress. Just today, the Duluth News Tribune, their headline was, in endorsing us, said that this is the leader that Minnesota needs to be able to facilitate, to be able to build the relationships, and to be able to make sure that government is measured by the effectiveness together. It's the tone that I've ran this campaign. It's the tone that I've served with in Congress, and it's the tone that Minnesotans are looking for. They just want solutions, and I think that's what the next governor is going to have to. I think this is probably the most important question, because every other question will flow from that. If it is the partisan rhetoric that I am dug in on my issues, I can't change my mind, I'm unwilling to break with someone, that's where it becomes a problem.
And I would tend to agree with that, although, Tim, you have a very partisan record in Congress. You've voted with Ellison and Pelosi, I think, 94% of the time. So it doesn't suggest that you're jumping across the aisle maybe as much as you like to say. And you know, frankly, I mentioned I'm in a minority of one. I lose some votes, 6-1. On the Hennepin County Board, and sometimes we lose 4-3, but other times I am able to cobble together coalitions with people who just disagree with my worldview, but we look to see what can we actually agree on. And that's the approach I'm going to take as governor. We need a governor who leads from the beginning of session and is engaged from the beginning of session, rather than a governor who waits until the very end and then everything blows up because nobody knew where he stood.
Did you want to respond again?
No.
All right, gentlemen, thank you.
So before we end this debate, you guys both have closing statements that you can make. Mr. Johnson, we're going to start with you. You have 1 minute to let Minnesotans know why they should vote for you.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you again for having us and for hosting this debate. I believe Minnesota is the greatest state in America. It has been my entire life, but I have some real concerns about where we're heading. And Tim and I, while we get along, we have just dramatically different views of where to go from here. For example, I believe Minnesotans pay too much in taxes, and Tim has promised to raise taxes. I believe Minnesotans should have more control over their health care, and Tim believes government should control our health care. I believe that we should work with the federal government to enforce our immigration laws, and Tim thinks we should be a sanctuary state. And unlike Tim, I believe that government has become completely unaccountable in Minnesota, and we need just a fundamental change in the status quo. Because what makes this state so extraordinary, so awesome, is not government. It is our people. It is the work ethic and the creativity and the ingenuity and just the basic goodness and decency of our people. And I will be a governor that empowers those people and not more government, so we continue to be the greatest state in America.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Wallace, your closing statement.
Well, thank you both. Thank you to listeners for caring enough about this. This is the state that our blood spilled at Gettysburg to preserve the Union. It was our iron that forged the tanks that liberated Europe. It was our farmers that sparked a green revolution, and it was our imagination that transformed medicine. This is not a state that finds fear. This is not a state that worries about the future. This is a state that creates the future. It's time for a governor with a proven record, whether it be in uniform, whether it be in that classroom, whether it be in Congress, or whether it be now, to bring us together, to set our sights high, not to think low, not to tell us what we can't do, tell us what we can do, tell us what we can do together. Let's create that state that needs to be the shining example for the rest of the country. We're not interested in just talking about health care. We're interested in curing cancer. We're not interested in denying climate change. We're interested in being part of the solution. And when we do that, our communities thrive. We are a welcoming place where people want to come, and Minnesota takes its rightful place, as it always has been, as an incredible state for people to raise their families. So I hope that I can earn your vote on November 6th and would be honored to have it.
Thank you.
Jeff Johnson, Tim Walz, thank you for your time tonight, and thank you to our viewers at home for watching this debate.
We hope you found this helpful and informative. Thank you for watching. And now we want to send it back to Brandy Powell and Matt Belanger.
Paul and Leah, thank you so much, and thanks for joining us for this special evening here on 5 Eyewitness News.
We are broadcasting live from the Great Hall of Metropolitan State University.
You've just been watching the gubernatorial debate with Jeff Johnson and Tim Walz.
Now, Keith Ellison and Doug Wardlow are making their way to the stage for the Attorney General's debate. That's starting in just a few minutes here. First, we'd like to thank all of our sponsors right now, along with Metropolitan State University. They include the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce, Prosperity's Front Door, and Citizens League.
Our partners include the Minneapolis Regional Chamber of Commerce, Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, Dakota County Regional Chamber of Commerce, and Twin West Chamber of Commerce. We'd like to remind you that 5 Eyewitness News is airing this 3-hour broadcast commercial-free and statewide.
That's right. These debates are airing not only on KSTP TV, but also WDIO TV in Duluth, KWAL TV in Rochester, WDAY Extra in Fargo, and KDLT Antenna TV in Sioux Falls. And there's a lot at stake this election season at the nation's capital.
It's all about that balance of power in Washington, D.C., and 5 Eyewitness News reporter Egert shows us what's on the line for Democrats and Republicans.
I'm Joe Manchin.
On TV.
Things are not getting done.
On social media. Campaigns around the country are on full blast.
And I approve this message.
I approve this message.
I approve this message.
Gearing up for an intense sprint to November. Trying to energize voters.
This is as anticipated in the midterm election as one can ever imagine. These colossal forces in American politics are all converging on one high-profile election day.
It's a midterm that ABC News political director Rick Klein says could shake up politics in the country as we know it.
This election could change the course of the Trump presidency and maybe the course of politics for a generation. And if he's able to get voters out there to vote for the Republicans and hold on to the House, hold on to the Senate, maybe even expand the majority slightly in the Senate, which is a possibility, that would show President Trump as an unrivaled political force of this or any age.
And you understand what that means.
A blue wave would show the enormous frustration that's been engendered by President Trump and the Trump administration. It would bring out a lot of voters who haven't voted before, some voters who may have given President Trump a chance the first time around that would be flipping on him.
Let's take a look at the balance of power and how it breaks down. In the Senate, Republicans have a 2-seat advantage. There are 35 seats up for grabs. 26 of those are currently held by Democrats. Now, keeping GOP control, that helps the president with his agenda and trying to get nominees into office. Over in the House, all the seats are up for grabs. Democrats have to flip 23 seats in order to gain control.
Well, this midterm is somewhat different than others.
Political science professor Catherine Pearson says this election will determine the direction of current congressional investigations.
It'll be hugely consequential in terms of whether or not we see oversight of executive agencies and investigations into the Trump White House, depending on which party is in control.
Pearson says midterm elections don't often favor the person sitting in the Oval Office.
Historically, midterm elections favor the party that is not in the White House, but the president's popularity or lack thereof really determines whether or not it'll be a wave election.
Back in 1994, Republicans took back the House during President Clinton's first term, picking up 62 seats. In 2002, during President Bush's first term, riding a 62% approval rating, Republicans actually picked up seats. And during President Obama's first term, Democrats ended up losing 63 seats.
And this as the first nationwide referendum on President Trump and an outlet for a lot of the frustrations as well as the exuberance of the Trump era.
With a lot on the line for both parties, the final days of the campaign will be a frenzied fight to the finish.
You can expect to see a president out on the trail in lots of places. Democrats, the 2020 contenders, President Obama, former Vice President Biden, they are going to be out. All of them underscoring the same points, that the stakes literally could not be higher for this midterm election.
Egert, 5 Eyewitness News.
All right, everyone, now to the rules and the format of our debate for the Attorney General's race.
We did not provide the questions to the candidates before this debate. However, we did share general topics with each of the campaigns.
Tonight, we are asking the candidates about a wide range of issues important to Minnesota voters. While we did solicit questions from the public, audience members will not ask live questions tonight.
Each candidate will have 30 seconds to deliver an opening statement about why he is running for the office. They will both then each have 1 minute to answer a question, and 2 minutes of discussion and rebuttal will follow. And to close out the debate, both candidates will have 1 minute to deliver their final remarks. So now we want to get to that debate. Current Attorney General Lori Swanson is not seeking re-election, and here are the two candidates competing for the job.
Keith Ellison is the DFL nominee. He is currently the U.S. Representative for Minnesota's 5th Congressional District. Ellison has worked as a civil rights and defense attorney.
Doug Wardlow is the Republican nominee. He is a former state representative for District 38B. Wardlow has worked as a constitutional lawyer.
Okay, now let's begin this hour-long debate. Your moderators tonight, 5 Eyewitness News Chief Political Reporter Tom Hauser and anchor Leah McLean.
And good evening, and thank you for joining us. We do appreciate that both of the major party candidates for Attorney General have agreed to join us tonight, and we look forward to hearing from both of you on important issues.
Yeah, we're going to cover a wide range of topics tonight. We want to start with opening statements tonight on why you are running for the office of Attorney General. Keith Ellison, let's start with you. 30 seconds, please.
Thank you. I'm running for Minnesota Attorney General because I want to help Minnesotans afford their lives and to benefit from human and civil rights that everybody should enjoy. You know, when you see insulin gallop in price over the course of just a few years, it's tough to afford your life if you have diabetes. If you see student loan debt going up, wages stagnating, you need somebody, an attorney general, who's going to be on your side to make sure that when the consumer frauds are happening, when your farm is in jeopardy, that the attorney general is standing with you.
And Mr. Wardlow, you have 30 seconds.
Well, thank you. You know, my wife Jenny and I, we live in Prior Lake, and we have 3 young children. I want them to grow up in Minnesota where the streets are safe, the law is respected, and the weakest among us are protected. And that is the job of the Attorney General. That is why I'm running. You're going to see a clear contrast tonight between myself and Mr. Ellison. Mr. Ellison is a radical Washington politician who wants to push a radical policy agenda through the courts. That's where I'm different. That's not what you'll see from me. I'm going to be an independent voice, beholden to no political party. I'm going to enforce the law and protect and defend all Minnesotans.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wardlow and Mr. Ellison, for those opening remarks. Mr. Ellison, character has become a major issue in this campaign for Attorney General. Just before the primary election, you were accused by a former girlfriend of domestic abuse. She says she has a video of the incident. You have responded to this in the past, but this is the widest audience yet statewide that you have to respond to this. Can you tell us, again, in your own words, how you respond to these allegations?
Well, I consider these allegations very serious, which is why I fully cooperated with the investigation. And that investigation, which is a 15-page report, which anyone could read, has found that the allegations were unsubstantiated. I can tell you that I believe that it's wrong to politicize a tragic situation like this, and I think that it is absolutely improper for this to become a political football and a weapon in this particular election, particularly when many of the people who are weaponizing this allegation have failed to bring it up in other critical situations. For example, President Trump has been credibly accused 19 times, one on tape. In fact, no one can forget that particular occasion, yet the people who continue to weaponize this allegation against me have failed to mention that at all. And let me note as well that this is just a tactic to divert from the critical issues in this particular race. This race is about who's going to be the Attorney General, who's going to be best to represent Minnesotans. I'm that person.
To be clear, you deny it. You deny the allegations.
Without a doubt.
Mr. Wardlow, your opponent denies the allegation. Do you accept that denial, or is this a legitimate issue for voters to consider when they go to the polls on Election Day?
Well, this is absolutely a legitimate issue for the voters to consider. You know, President Trump is not on the ballot here. Keith Ellison is, and he wants to be our state's top cop, our top law enforcement official. There are serious and troubling allegations of domestic violence that have been leveled against Mr. Ellison by 2 different women. And those 2 different women have brought those allegations forward, and they're about conduct that's pretty recent in time, 2005 and 2016. There is overwhelming evidence to support these allegations. This is not a situation where it's just naked allegations. There is overwhelming evidence in the form of a 911 call report. There are witnesses. Karen Monahan actually spoke with a number of people shortly after the abuse occurred. And those are witnesses. There are medical records. There's a lot of evidence. So these are very troubling and very serious allegations that are corroborated. There's plenty of evidence for the public to conclude that Keith Ellison should not be the state's top law enforcement official.
Mr. Ellison, as a follow-up to this, again, Karen Monahan says she has video of this. You say the video does not exist. Can you assure voters that this video, will not surface before Election Day?
Absolutely. It can't possibly surface because the behavior described I didn't engage in. But let me just say that there are no two allegations. The one that Mr. Wardlaw is referring to, I was the one that got the order for protection against that individual. I got the order for protection against them. And in this particular case, a month-long, 15-page, a month-long investigation by a trained professional expert in employment law looked at everything, and concluded that they could not sustain these allegations. They're unsubstantiated, and I can assure you that the behavior described, I never engaged in.
Mr. Wardlow, as you know, in Washington, D.C., there was recently confirmation hearings for now Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Some people have said there's a double standard, the way he was treated and the way Mr. Ellison is being treated. Can you address that, and do you believe that is true?
Yes, I do believe that is true. There is a double standard, and I think it reveals that a lot of party bosses on the Democratic side, they care about power and they care about politics. They're willing to smear Brett Kavanaugh with allegations, and they don't look at those allegations with the same standards they look at Mr. Ellison. And Mr. Ellison is the deputy chair of the Democratic National Committee. There is no one more political, really, than Keith Ellison. And so because he's the deputy chair of the Democratic National Committee, and because he's a Democrat, it appears that he's getting a pass. And the sham investigation he's talking about was put on by his own party, a lawyer in a law firm that has donated a lot of money to the DFL.
Mr. Ellison, is there a double standard? There was an allegation against Justice Kavanaugh. He denied it. There was an allegation against you. You denied it. Yet many Democrats believed Brett Kavanaugh's accuser, but do not believe yours. Is there a double standard?
No, they're completely different cases and should be evaluated on their own facts. And therefore, and Brett Kavanaugh is a U.S. Supreme Court justice today. I went through a month-long investigation. His was foreshortened less than a week. But now that we're on the topic of political behavior, actually it is Mr. Wardlaw who was on tape saying that he would fire Democrats in a political purge. That's political.
I'd like to ask about that.
We're getting to that topic next.
Yeah, thank you for the segue. Mr. Wardlow, you have campaigned for months saying your opponent would politicize the office of Attorney General. You were recently heard on tape saying you would fire 42 Democratic attorneys right off the bat and get Republican attorneys in there. So how do you explain what you meant by that?
Well, I think it should come as a surprise to no one that when a new person goes into an office like this, we got to shake things up. We can't take the politics out of the office of Attorney General. It has been thoroughly politicized by Lori Swanson and by Mike Hatch before her. We can't take the politics out of the office unless we make some changes. And I will make some changes, but I'm not going to use party as a litmus test for appointees. Rather, I'm going to make sure that everyone in the office can put the rule of law above politics.
Mr. Ellison,
I just urge people to listen to the quote. You can literally listen to Mr. Wardlaw's voice saying right off the bat he is going to fire 42 Democrats and replace them with Republicans. But that's not all. He also
that's not
said
exactly
he also
that's been taken out of context.
No,
the fact of the matter is,
let him finish.
He also said that he was going to implement Trump's agenda if he gets in. That's also something he said. He also said he's going to use the office to change the complexion of the state for Republicans. Time after time after time, he has been the one accusing me of what he's doing, which is politicizing the office. In my entire history as a member of Congress, I have never asked anyone what their political affiliation was. I have helped people of all parties, and I would be glad to hire any Republican or independent who's willing to throw down and fight hard every single day for Minnesotans. I believe it's absolutely inappropriate to use a political purge, to pledge a political purge, and then not even stand by what you said in this statewide audience. This has been the cornerstone of Mr. Wardlow's campaign, that he's apolitical, and yet he says he's going to do a political purge. Listen to it for yourself.
Would you like to
I never
respond?
said anything about doing a political purge. The fact of the matter is, in those same comments, I said I'm fighting for this office not for the Republican Party, but rather for the cause of the rule of law and the Constitution and for liberty. But, there's really no one more political than Keith Ellison. This is the deputy chair of the Democratic National Committee. And he still wants to maintain that office if he is elected Attorney General. Those two positions are entirely incompatible. He has pledged on numerous occasions to join with other Democrat Attorneys General around the country to sue the president. He wants to use this office to wage a political war, to push a radical political and a policy agenda, and that's completely inappropriate. We should not be abusing or misusing taxpayer resources or the powers of this office to push forward any kind of policy agenda. And I will not do that as Attorney General. I will simply defend and protect Minnesotans and enforce the law.
Mr. Ellison, you have said as an Attorney General should be able to advance a political or legislative agenda. Is that one of the roles of the office, do you think?
I do think that it is entirely appropriate for the Attorney General to come up with a legislative agenda and work with the state legislature and the governor to pass things that will benefit a higher quality of law and justice in the state of Minnesota. For example, I believe that all Minnesotans, no matter who they are or who they love, should be able to go into any institution they want and purchase goods and services. Right now, at this very moment, there is a group called the Alliance for Defending Freedom that is suing in St. Cloud so that some videographers who don't like gay people can lawfully discriminate against them. Thank God Judge Thunheim threw that out. I will be somebody who says, no, we're not going to have any sort of situation where people can't go into a store, can't take benefit of some businesses. I'm going to make sure everyone benefits from services. In fact, Doug Wardlow worked for that group, the Alliance to Defend Freedom. I will stand up for equal rights for all. That'll be part of what I'm standing for as my policy agenda, liberty and justice for all.
And Mr. Wardlow, should the Attorney General's office be able to advance a political or legislative agenda?
The Attorney General should only advance a legislative agenda with respect to the budget of the Attorney General, but let me, and with respect to law and to justice, so a limited category of things. So Keith Ellison wants to push a radical political agenda, and just let me address the Alliance Defending Freedom bit he talked about. I want, as Attorney General, I'm going to stand up for the rights of all Minnesotans, regardless of sex, race, sexual orientation, or gender. Absolutely, all Minnesotans, and I'm not going to be political. And the Alliance Defending Freedom, the work I did there was fighting for First Amendment rights. The First Amendment protects free speech and freedom of religion. These are not controversial things. Apparently, Keith Ellison doesn't believe in the First Amendment. He's actually said that he wants his party to come out against the Second Amendment and push to eliminate the Second Amendment from, look it up, it is true. He wants to eliminate the Second Amendment from the Constitution. How can a person that wants to strip citizens of fundamental constitutional rights be the state's top law enforcement official?
That is a significant suggestion or allegation he has made. We will give you 30 seconds to respond.
Yeah, let me just say that I am a gun owner. I own 2 shotguns and a deer rifle. I go hunting. I go pheasant hunting. I go turkey hunting. I believe in the Second Amendment. I just think that we ought to do something about all these guns which result in such massive loss of life all over our state. We need to have sensible gun safety laws. I have said that. I stand by that. But I will tell you this. When Mr. Wardlow says this thing about the First Amendment, what he's saying is that my religion should allow me to exclude gay people from buying the services of a particular company. And I think that's wrong. I want to know, do you think that's true? I mean, that's what the lawsuit's all about. That's what your law firm is saying.
Not true.
He has now made a significant allegation against you. I'll give you 30 seconds to respond, then we'll move on to another topic.
Absolutely. So my work at Alliance Defending Freedom, I fought for free speech and free thought and free religion, standing up for the rights of all Americans. These are fundamental constitutional rights. Everything he's saying is simply untrue. But if you want to talk about extremism, if you want to talk about discrimination, Mr. Ellison here has been associated with Louis Farrakhan, a terrible anti-Semite, for quite a long time. And Mr. Farrakhan is someone who said just a few days ago he compared Jews to termites. That is just abhorrent and evil. And, you know, Mr. Ellison here has never denounced Louis Farrakhan.
We were going to get to that later, but I can't let it sit there and rest for several minutes without you answering it. So, Mr. Ellison, you have 30 seconds, and then we'll move on to another topic.
I absolutely unqualifiedly denounce and dismiss and avoid and reject the views of Louis Farrakhan. I've said that many years ago. Look, in the early 1990s, Louis Farrakhan was a person speaking to issues of African American civil rights. At that time, he had some things I thought he had to offer. He made it very clear in the early 90s that his views and mine were absolutely incompatible, and I've been saying that ever since, and my opponents keep on dragging it up, but
actually,
it isn't
I just
true.
need to respond to that because the Washington Post, for trying to dissociate yourself from Mr. Farrakhan,
we have more than another half hour to go.
Said that you gave you a award of 4 Pinocchios. And, you know, in 1995, you penned an op-ed in Insight News.
Mr. Wardlow,
95 was a long time ago.
Continue with
call
this
him a role model for youth.
My views have changed dramatically since then,
Mr.
and I reject those
Mr.
views.
Wardlow,
but will you denounce the Alliance for Defending Freedom?
Oh, no, because they fight for First Amendment freedoms.
Mr. Wardlow, we will continue with this line of questioning in a moment. Let's move on to another topic right now, and then we'll come back to some of these issues. Mr. Ellison, how active should the state be in challenging federal laws that you don't agree with as Attorney General?
Well,
and give us some examples.
Well, let me just start out with this lawsuit that some attorneys general have filed to strip out pre-existing condition protections from the Affordable Care Act. That is a lawsuit that I'm very glad Lori Swanson has joined. I think that when I talk to Minnesotans about diabetes, about heart disease, about all the illnesses that people are plagued with, it terrifies them that the federal government is refusing to defend the law that these attorneys general are pushing. I will stand with people who have pre-existing conditions, fight for their ability to get health care access, and be there for them. I don't agree that the federal government is trying to put in a question around citizenship. The Constitution says count all persons. I don't agree with that policy. I don't agree that with the federal government's decision on the internet. I believe in net neutrality, and I think that there are some challenges that are certainly warranted there. And let's not forget about pulling children away from parents that the Trump administration is doing.
Mr. Wardlow, are there times that you would join other states in challenging the federal government?
Now, those times would be few and far between, but you just all heard Mr. Ellison say that he wants to basically challenge in court anything he disagrees with. And it wasn't too many days ago that Mr. Ellison said, and this is on tape, you can look it up on the internet, he said that he might not defend laws of the state of Minnesota that he doesn't agree with or that he thinks are not workable, is the word that he used. Well, that's unconscionable. The Attorney General is supposed to enforce the laws of the state of Minnesota. It doesn't matter what you think about those laws. If they're constitutional, they must be enforced and they must be defended. That's what I will do as Attorney General. I will stand up for the laws of Minnesota and the people of Minnesota and simply defend and protect Minnesotans.
Do you have a response?
My response is that as a legislator of 12 years, congressperson and a legislator of 4, I will work with members of the legislature to make sure that not only are the laws constitutional, I'll insist upon that, but that we'll work together to make sure that if they pass a law, that it's something that can actually be implemented. That's the only point that I was making.
But you just said you were going to sue the federal government to challenge laws.
This goes back to this idea that this campaign where there's all this mudslinging and distortion all the time. I'm telling you what Doug Wardlaw has said. He's trying to always distort, give half-truths about what I've said. I will stand up for the Constitution, and I will stand up for Minnesota law, and I will work with legislators to make sure that the laws make sense and can be effectively implemented.
Mr. Wardlow, final comment.
Well, you also said that you wouldn't defend necessarily laws you don't agree with or that you regard as not workable. You also said you're going to try to bypass Congress and sue the president and sue the federal government whenever you don't agree with a certain kind of a certain policy. And that's unconscionable. The Attorney General is supposed to protect the law. But you said that things that you disagree with, like net neutrality and things like that, you went through a list of policies there. So it's clear that you want to push a radical agenda, a policy agenda, through the courts using taxpayer resources and the Office of the Attorney General. That is completely inappropriate.
May I simply say, Tom, that if he believes that standing up for net neutrality is radical, then we don't agree. And we just don't agree on that. I'm going to stand for openness and access of information.
I think that I agree with that too, but the fact of the matter is that's a legislative decision for Congress, and it's not something that the Attorney General of Minnesota should waste or abuse taxpayer resources suing the federal government about.
We don't agree on that.
Let's move on to the next topic, gentlemen. Consumer protection. Mr. Wardlow, consumer protection has been a major function of the Attorney General's office in recent years. So if you were Attorney General, would that remain a top priority in the office?
Absolutely it would. Consumers need to be protected, and we need to protect especially our senior citizens from scammers and thieves and liars. That will remain a top priority of the office when I'm Attorney General. And we need to do that because that's one of the jobs of the Attorney General. It's in statute. Now, Keith Ellison, we can't trust Keith Ellison to protect consumers or anyone else. Just look at his atrocious record. Keith Ellison has regularly stood up for, rallied, and raised money for people who have murdered police officers. He's a cheerleader for cop killers. Asada Shakur, Sarah Jane Olson. Look these things up. They are absolutely true. You have rallied and raised money for domestic terrorists, Sarah Jane Olson.
Let's stay to
these are terrible things.
Protection.
So you can't trust Keith Ellison to protect consumers or anyone else. As Attorney General, I will absolutely enforce consumer fraud laws. I'm going to defend and protect all Minnesotans.
Mr. Ellison.
I just want to make it clear. I'm talking about Minnesota families, and he's talking about me. My point is that I'm here, my whole life is based on standing up for consumers and helping people to afford their lives. You know, I'm so proud that Lori Swanson file suit to make sure that those price gougers with regard to insulin are being held accountable.
I agree with that.
She stood up and she's making sure that people can afford their insulin. I think that's a good thing. She stood up for the people of Cottage Grove to make sure that they had clean water coming out of their tap, and held a great Minnesota company, but one that needed to be held accountable when it came to the toxins that they're being spewed into the neighbors in that particular community. She's been a good consumer advocate. I have stood up and helped pass the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That's my consumer record of standing up for consumers, financial services, and student loan debt. This is why I'm running. That's my purpose, because I want to stand with consumers and help people fare well in this economy.
The criminal division has not been as much of a focus lately in this Attorney General's office. Mr. Wardlow, you've spoken about rebuilding the criminal division. So what would that look like under your leadership?
Well, we absolutely need to rebuild the criminal law division. You know, prior to Mike Hatch, there was a pretty robust criminal law division, and our county attorneys, especially in greater Minnesota, they don't really have the resources that they need at all times to handle difficult prosecutions when they arise. We need to make sure the Attorney General's office comes in and provides that support to keep Minnesotans fair and safe. We also need to provide statewide leadership on things like human trafficking. You know, hundreds of kids on a regular basis every single month in Minnesota are being sold for human trafficking purposes. As Attorney General, I will end that. I will put together a plan working with county attorneys and with law enforcement to put an end to human trafficking once and for all. And I'm going to fight the opioid epidemic as well. I'm not afraid to take on big pharma, but also we need to fight opioid pushers, and we need to stop opioids from coming across the border from Mexico and overseas from China, and that means cooperating with federal immigration authorities and on border enforcement as well. So I will absolutely rebuild the criminal law division and keep Minnesota fair and safe. We can't trust Keith Ellison to do that because he's a cheerleader for criminals. He stands with cop killers. Absolutely. And by the way, when he was in the state house in Congress, I'm not repeating myself. When you were in Congress, you opposed, just let me finish, you opposed a bill to prevent sexual predators from teaching in schools. And that, just let that sink in.
Let's give Mr. Ellison a chance to respond to this question about divisions within the Attorney General's office that may need a little more attention or a little more focus.
As well as the allegations he just made.
Respond.
This may be one thing that Mr. Wardlaw and I agree on, that the criminal division does need to be strengthened. I think that it is critically important for every county attorney in the state of Minnesota to know that there's no county too far away from the metro or too small to get the benefit and the help of the Minnesota Attorney General's office, as Keith Ellison's the Attorney General. I will boost up and help with criminal appeals. Many of them struggle to get that work done. When there's a big crime committed in greater Minnesota, you know, there are some counties that only have one or two county attorneys. We will be there to help them, because I want every county attorney who is the front line in defending Minnesotans, protecting them from crime, to know that the Attorney General's office will have their back every time. I make that pledge, and I am looking forward to fulfilling that role. We'll coalesce around issues like fentanyl and opioids, and we'll also be right there, particularly in our tribal communities, fighting to stop sex trafficking and human trafficking, labor trafficking, violations of prevailing wage laws.
All right, let's move on to another topic, immigration. Not much controversy here, so let's get right into it. Mr. Ellison, what role should state law enforcement play in immigration? For instance, should Minnesota provide sanctuary for illegal immigrants, at least in terms of not using state or local officials to enforce federal immigration law?
Yeah, I do not think that the law enforcement resources of our state should be used to enforce federal immigration law. I do believe that where cooperation is warranted, it should occur. But I just don't want our police officers asking people for their papers on the streets of our state. I think that it's best to do it in the way that the federal government does its role, the state government does its role. Now, let me just say there are certain areas where I believe the state has a role to play. You know, I have a particular friend who who has leukemia. His bone marrow match was his sister, who was in Tehran. Because of the Trump travel ban / Muslim ban, we had a lot of trouble getting that bone marrow match to the United States. And I think that there's a role for the state to play to make sure that Minnesotans in Minnesota, where they need to take advantage of the immigration law, can get those things done. particularly in situations like this.
Mr. Wardlow, as Attorney General, would you support using state and local law enforcement to enforce federal immigration law?
Well, I think our state and local law enforcement needs to cooperate with federal law enforcement. Federal law enforcement, these are our neighbors. They live with us here in Minnesota. It's not like some outside force coming in, right? So we need to cooperate with them. This is a nation of laws, but our immigration system is broken. We have some cities where the law is respected. We have some cities where it is not. We can't have cities flouting federal law. You know, that's making Minnesota a place that is less safe, and this is a big problem. Keith Ellison stands for open borders. He has gone around and campaigned for sanctuary cities. He basically wants to make Minnesota a sanctuary state, and that means that illegal immigrants who are dangerous criminals would not necessarily be reported to the federal government. That is terrible, and we cannot have a top law enforcement official who wants cities to flout federal law, who wants the state to flout federal law, and who is okay with having a sanctuary state and doesn't really believe in borders at all.
Mr. Ellison, your response.
Again, this is ridiculous. Of course, I believe in borders. The fact is that I believe that our ICE and the Border Patrol, they perform a function that is important, but I believe they need reform. We cannot have a situation where children and parents are being pulled apart at the border, and they don't even know how to put the families back together again. I mean, that's not a good thing. I hope you don't approve of that. I also think that it's important to understand that, look, we are a country where immigration literally helps drive economic and social benefit. We cannot keep pushing this harmful rhetoric that scares new Americans off, and I think that it's important to understand that if anybody commits a crime, they're going to be held accountable. If they don't have legal authorization, they're going to have to deal with the immigration law. That's just what the law is. But this scary stuff about I don't believe in borders and stuff, this is a myth. It's not true, and I hope that people pay attention to this overblown rhetoric.
Mr. Wardlow, final word.
Well, Mr. Ellison said recently that he thinks that borders create an injustice in general. And Mr. Ellison has been seen wearing a T-shirt that says, "I don't believe in borders."
That's a fashion
and
choice.
The fact of the matter is, well, it's an interesting fashion choice, isn't it? He voted present in Congress on abolishing ICE, so apparently he doesn't really respect our federal immigration authorities.
That's ridiculous.
We need to, well, these are the facts.
No,
I'm
they're
just stating
not.
facts. They are facts.
They are not
You can look
facts.
them up. And I encourage the voters of Minnesota to do that, to look up these facts, to see that Keith Ellison can't be trusted as our Attorney General. He stands for open borders, and that will make Minnesota less safe.
All right, let's move on to another topic. Mr. Wardlow, if elected as Attorney General, you'd likely be asked to weigh in on the issue of legalizing recreational marijuana. Would you support legalization?
Well, I think, that's a legislative question, first of all. And I think the legislature, when they take a look at that question, they should consider all angles, but they need to look at what's going on in Washington State, and they need to look at Colorado, and they need to see, they should let that enter into their judgments of what's going on there and learn some lessons. But I think that, that's a legislative question. And the Attorney General's job is to enforce the law, not to pass laws, not to push policies. Keith Ellison wants to use the Attorney General's office to push a policy agenda. He said it many times just this evening. All the different policies that he agrees with or disagrees with, he wants to use the courts and the Attorney General's office to push those policies and bypass the representatives of the people. That's completely inappropriate.
If the state legislature were to say that they were supporting legalizing recreational marijuana, would you then support it?
If the legislature passes a law legalizing it, then absolutely I will defend that law, even if whether I disagree with it or agree with it, it doesn't matter. If it's constitutional, and it would be, then I will defend that law, and I will defend all of the laws of the state of Minnesota.
Mr. Ellison, do you support the legalization of recreational marijuana?
Yes. I think that it should be done carefully. It should be done thoughtfully. Obviously, we should benefit from all the experiences that other states and countries have had. We should keep the monopolies out, and I think that's very important. I don't want to see some large marijuana monopoly coming and dominating markets in Minnesota, but I think that it is. I also think we should look at people who've been convicted for marijuana offenses and see whether or not these people should get expungements of their records. But I do think that it's the right policy. Noah Johnson, by the way, who was also in this campaign, he has endorsed my campaign because he and I agree that we need to look forward on this policy deliberately, thoughtfully, learning from all experience. But I think it's an issue that's time has come, particularly for people who use it for medicinal purposes.
Thank you.
Mr. Wardlow, are you concerned, though, about if you legalize recreational marijuana? It wasn't that long ago legalizing medicinal marijuana was very controversial, and law enforcement had issues with that. What are you hearing from law enforcement on this issue?
Well, they are concerned about this issue, and I do have concerns about this issue, but that is up for the legislature to decide. I would just simply note that the Minneapolis Police Union has endorsed my candidacy, and they did that because they understand that I will have their back. And in fact, if law enforcement is watching tonight, that's my message to you. As Attorney General, I will have your back. We need to have law enforcement that is respected, and we need to make sure that they have all the resources they need to do their job.
But on the issue of recreational marijuana, have you heard from them specifically on that? If you were elected Attorney General, you would be the chief law enforcement officer in the state. It's likely the legislature will ask for your advice on this. What advice would you give them?
I have heard from law enforcement on that, and I would consult with law enforcement, and it would be good for law enforcement to go and testify at the legislature and to make their views known.
Would
Absolutely.
you be for or against legalizing recreational marijuana?
I don't think it would be appropriate for the Attorney General to take a position on a pure policy issue like that. I think the Attorney General should enforce the law and defend and protect Minnesotans. That is the job. The job of the Attorney General is not to weigh in and make laws, but Keith Ellison apparently thinks it is. But if he wanted to make laws, he should have stayed in Congress.
You get the final word on this.
Look, it is just absurd to say that a statewide office holder in a position like Attorney General should not have any political views or any policy views. Of course we do. And every Minnesota Attorney General that we've ever had was unafraid to say, yes, I think this is a good policy, but it's the legislature's job to pass it. I think this is a good policy, but they need to do this to make it constitutional. This idea that Mr. Wardlaw doesn't have any views on anything is simply not the case. He has been very clear he's not for a woman's right to choose. He's been very clear he wants to use the office to suppress voting. He's been very clear he wants to put only Republicans in the attorney to fire Democrats and put Republicans in. It is very clear he has a policy agenda. He just doesn't want to say what it is. And I think it's fair for the people to know.
He's made a couple of accusations there. I'll let you respond.
I can just simply say this. The Attorney General is supposed to enforce the law, and as Attorney General, that is what I will do. I think it's completely inappropriate for Mr. Ellison here to suggest that the Attorney General should be some kind of bully for the legislature and try to push certain policy agendas. He wants to push a radical policy agenda. He's got a lot of different ideas, and of course I have opinions too. But that's the difference between myself and Mr. Ellison. He wants to use the Office of the Attorney General, which is a law enforcement office, to push certain policy positions. I want to enforce the law and simply defend and protect all Minnesotans.
Now, speaking of policy positions, gun laws, something, again, that the Attorney General may be asked to address in this next legislative session. Mr. Ellison, there's likely to be more action on this. What changes in state law might you advocate in terms of gun laws as Attorney General?
You know, I would suggest to legislators that we need mandatory locks on firearms in homes. I think that there's no good reason to have high capacity clips in the household. When I go hunting for turkey, I basically take 2 shells with me, and I don't think you need a whole lot more than that to defend your home. I think that we need to get together with groups that have dealt with the tragedy of mass shooting and one-on-one shooting and get their advice on these things. Studying the effects of gun violence, I think, is absolutely critical. I think that these weapons of war that like bump stocks and things like this just really have no place. So I'll just wrap up by saying I have seen firsthand the horrors of irresponsible gun laws. I'll never forget a friend of mine named Ruben Rahamim, who was killed right down the street from my office, and I stand up here for him and his family to say we're going to have sane gun laws.
Mr. Wardlow, does Minnesota need stricter gun laws?
Well, I don't think Minnesota needs stricter gun laws. I think that the laws that we have are sufficient. But again, this is a legislative question. I think the legislature should address it, and they should hear from law enforcement. They should hear from all stakeholders and interested parties and the public when making their decision. Again, Keith Ellison is pushing forward policy positions, and he wants to do that with the Office of the Attorney General. And, again, Mr. Ellison has said publicly on television that he wishes his party would come out against the Second Amendment.
Not true.
You cannot be against the Second Amendment and be the state's top law enforcement official. You want to strip people of their fundamental constitutional rights. That's wholly inappropriate.
I'm a gun owner, Tom. I own guns. I'm not against people owning guns. I own them myself, and I use them when I go hunting. But the point is, people are being killed in mass shootings every day. The point is, people are being shot down one by one every day. There was a grandmother named Burdell Beeks, who some young people who were very misguided, engaged in criminal behavior, shooting at each other, missed each other and killed her. This is a grandmother. We cannot stand by while this carnage on our street grows and act like there's nothing anybody can do about it. There are things we can do about it, and I'm going to be there to work with legislators, citizens, yes, police, and county attorneys to fashion laws that protect people.
On one specific issue, would you ever favor universal background checks?
Yes. Yes, I would. But the fact of the matter is that it, again, is a legislative question. What we need to do to protect Minnesotans and keep Minnesotans fair, or keep Minnesotans safe, is we need to rebuild the criminal law division. We need to make sure that law enforcement has training and that law enforcement has resources in coordination with county attorneys. We need to back up our county attorneys and make sure that they have all the resources that they need to do their job. That's what the Attorney General should be focused on doing. That is what I will do as Attorney General. I will not be pushing a policy agenda and trying to change the law according to what I think the law should be. Rather, I'm going to respect the law, enforce the law, and then work with law enforcement and our prosecutors, our frontline prosecutors, our county attorneys, to make sure that criminals are put behind bars. We can't trust Mr. Ellison to do that because Mr. Ellison has a history of cheerleading for cop killers and standing with criminals.
Untrue. You keep saying
you can
it
look
doesn't
it up.
matter how many times you say it, it's not true.
Just look it up, it's true.
So, Tom, here's the thing. It is, I think, ridiculous to assume that the Attorney General will not be consulted on how we protect Minnesotans from gun violence. The Attorney General will be consulted, and I will offer my views, including universal background checks, to make sure that Minnesotans are safe. Of course, we're going to respect the private right to bear and own arms, but we're also going to make sure that people are safe and protected. That's not happening now, but it will when I'm the Attorney General.
Let's talk about another area where the Attorney General is consulted. Mr. Wardlow, the Attorney General has to represent the governor in court often. How will you work to have a productive relationship with the governor, who may perhaps be of a different party?
Absolutely. Well, I think it's important for the Attorney General's office to work directly with state agencies and try to represent them in all cases when they're enforcing their rules. That's very important. Too often state agencies go out and hire their own attorneys. But, as an attorney, it's also important to counsel the client, which is the state agency, when they're going to do something that's illegal or beyond their statutory authority, and try to make sure they stay within their limits of their authority. That's important because we need to lift the burden of illegal regulations and unconstitutional regulations off of job creators. I would do that. Now, Keith Ellison here, he stands against Minnesota's economy every time it matters. He opposes mining. He would side with radical environmentalists who want to stop mining in northern Minnesota.
Untrue.
If they had the chance. That's absolutely true. He opposes pipelines in Minnesota that would create thousands of jobs. These are true things. These are facts. You can look them up. And the fact of the matter is, it's just part of the fact that Keith Ellison wants to push a policy agenda, and that policy agenda would be bad for Minnesota, and it's inappropriate to do that through the courts. That's what representatives of the people are for.
Mr. Ellison, back to the issue of working
Right.
with a governor, potentially
Absolutely.
with a Republican governor. What would you do to foster a good relationship?
Well, I have to confess that I really look forward to Tim Walz being the governor of the state of Minnesota. I doubt that that's not going to be the case. I'm looking forward to that. But if he isn't, I know Jeff Johnson, and I'll work cooperatively with him. And I believe it is important to have an ongoing working relationship with everybody in state government and even at the U.S. Attorney's Office. We've got to be a team. I'll actually offer leadership to convene people around the critical issues that we're facing. Whether it's fentanyl, opioids, or no matter what it is, we will work together for the benefit of the people of the state of Minnesota. We will disagree, but we'll disagree above board. We won't say we don't have any views when we have them. We'll talk in a very concrete way, but we will look for ways to get to yes for the benefit of the people of the state.
And as far as representing the governor in a court case that may come up, you'd be comfortable representing the governor?
Again, if it's constitutional, if it's workable, then we'll get together and we'll figure out how to do that. And I don't mind talking about what I mean by workable. I mean, people pass laws all the time that are simply difficult to implement given the legal structure that we have. They may conflict with other law. They might be some ways that it just doesn't work that way. So I will work with the governor to make sure that the laws of the state are properly implemented, as long as they're constitutional, as long as they're not too vague or too or too irrational to implement properly.
Okay, so apparently Mr. Ellison just told us that if he thinks the law is irrational, he won't defend it, and he's not going to work with the governor to enforce the law. That's really remarkable. When I'm Attorney General, regardless of who the governor is, I think Jeff Johnson is going to win. He's a great guy, and it's looking very good, and I'm looking forward to working with Governor Johnson. But I can work with Tim Walz, I can work with any governor, because the job of the Attorney General is to provide legal advice to the governor and provide legal advice to state agencies and to defend and enforce the law, not to determine whether something's irrational and then try to change the law or try to challenge it or whatever we're talking about here.
I'm quite sure that a graduate of
ridiculous.
Georgetown law knows what the rational basis test
Well,
is.
that's right. Well,
so
yes,
that's
so
what
if
I'm
you're gonna introduce
talking about.
substantive
You
due
know
process
that,
into the question,
and
I mean,
so this is just another example.
So
of trying to
basically, he wants to
spin what
pick
I'm
and
saying.
choose the laws he wants to enforce. He's actually said that with respect to laws that might restrict abortion, that he would not defend them.
I think that if they don't comport with Roe, they're unconstitutional, and you better believe I'm not going to defend them.
So he's not going to defend laws that he doesn't agree with.
I believe in Roe v. Wade. I believe in a woman's right to choose. I believe in reproductive choice. And yes, I will defend that. I think that is a law, that is a constitutional fundamental right found in the Minnesota Constitution. And let's just be honest, Mr. Wardlaw, you don't agree with that. And you plan on not on attacking that particular constitutional guarantee.
No, I don't. I'm going to uphold the law,
We'll
and I'm going to stand by the Constitution.
Based on your history,
I'm going to stand
I
by the
doubt that.
Constitution and enforce the law like I've done for years as an attorney in private practice, representing clients I don't necessarily agree with.
Well,
And
let's
that's
talk
what a
about
lawyer
that.
does, zealously advocating for the rights of my clients. In this case, it will be the state of Minnesota and the people of Minnesota. And we're going to strictly enforce the law, and we're going to make sure that we protect and defend all Minnesotans fairly, and we're going to enforce the law evenly.
There's a Michigan case where there was a person who was working at a mortuary, I believe. They announced to their employer they were transgender, and the Alliance for Defending Freedom, represented by Mr. Wardlaw, fired this man and upheld his discharge simply because he made this choice about his life. I mean, that's not just defending a client you don't agree with. Do you agree that gay people have equal rights in America?
Of course they do,
and in
and of
Minnesota?
course I agree with that. Of course I agree with that.
What
And
about this
just
case? Let me ask you this.
No,
Let me
I'm
just
not
ask you
going
this.
to let you.
One at a time.
Well, let me
The
just
fact
ask
of the
you
matter
this.
is
What
this, can
about
I
this?
respond? Because I need to
Let him ask
respond to
the
these.
question.
What about this case in St. Cloud, where the videographers are seeking the right to discriminate against gay people based on their religious values? Do you agree with that, or do you not?
I don't know the details of that case, but the fact of the matter is this. They're not, I don't believe they're trying to discriminate, and I will defend and protect all Minnesotans and fight for the legal rights of all Minnesotans, regardless of sex, sexual orientation, or gender or race. That is absolutely the law of the state of Minnesota, that everyone has equal rights under the law, and I'm going to protect equal rights for every single Minnesotan. That's the job of the Attorney General.
Mr. Hauser, right now, you have the state of Minnesota on one side and the Alliance for Defending Freedom on the other side. The Alliance for Defending Freedom says that an owner of a business can tell people, we don't serve people like you here because they're gay, and it is the state of Minnesota that says we don't believe in that. It is Judge Thunheim said this reminds him of whites only stuff. My point is, where do you stand on this question?
That's absolutely preposterous.
Where do you stand?
With the people of Minnesota, and
Gentlemen, our next topic dovetails with this. The topic is extremism. Each of you has accused the other of being an extremist, one an extreme on the extreme right wing, one on the extreme left wing. Mr. Ellison, I'll start with you. You have said your opponent is a far-right conservative who is out of step with most Minnesotans. Can you give us some examples? I think you just have given us a couple. Give us a couple more. We'll give Mr. Wardlow a chance to respond.
Well, we could start out with him said he's going to fire 42 attorneys based on them being Democrats, not liking their party. That's pretty extreme. You can move on for him saying he doesn't believe people have the innate right to vote. That's sort of extreme. You can move on to the fact that the Alliance for Defending Freedom, which he worked for and just took off his LinkedIn page a few days ago, has been listed by the Southern Poverty Law Center as a hate group. A hate group. That's a fact. And I think that's kind of extreme. He has made it clear that he's 100%, he said, pro-life, and he's going to use the Attorney General's office to push that. That's kind of extreme. I think that he said that he wanted to change the complexion of the state to elect more Republicans. I think that's on the extreme side. And he has said he has not said he's going to step up and defend pre-existing conditions protections for Minnesotans, which I also think is extreme. So,
And Mr. Wardlow will give you a chance to respond and also to mention some areas where maybe you think Mr. Ellison is to the extreme left. But first, in terms of what he just said about you.
Absolutely. Those things that he said are simply not true. With respect to pre-existing conditions, just let me be very clear on this. I stand for and support mandating pre-existing condition coverage. End of story. Period. That's it. And the fact of the matter is, Keith Ellison broke our healthcare system. Keith Ellison is one who voted for Obamacare, and because of that, we have skyrocketing premiums and skyrocketing deductibles. We nearly had a collapse of access to healthcare in rural Minnesota. And now what Keith Ellison wants is more government-run healthcare. You know, as P.J. O'Rourke said, if you think healthcare is expensive now, just wait till it's free. The fact of the matter is, Keith Ellison has a radical policy agenda he wants to push. With respect to all the other stuff he said, he had quite a list there. Those things are simply not true. With respect to the Alliance Defending Freedom and the Southern Poverty Law Center, the Southern Poverty Law Center is a group that defames groups it disagrees with to raise money. That's all they really do. And you know, if as long as you're talking about extremism, Keith Ellison is the one who has been associated closely with Louis Farrakhan, who the Washington Post gave 4 Pinocchios to you for trying to deny your associations with Louis Farrakhan. In that 1995 op-ed in Insight News, you wrote that Louis Farrakhan is a role model for youth. This is the same person who just a few days ago compared Jews to termites. This is unconscionable.
Condemn.
That's good. I'm glad you finally condemned that.
It's not
the fact of the matter is this. Why didn't you condemn it as soon as Alan Dershowitz called on you to condemn it just the other day?
I've condemned
you were
those
silent.
Words like
the
that.
fact of the matter is this. I let you talk. Now let me.
Okay, you go ahead. You're right.
You know, there are many other ways that Keith Ellison is extreme, and that is the question here. You know, he did oppose a bill in Congress to prevent violent sexual predators from working as teachers in our schools. And when he was in the State House, he opposed a bill that would have provided life sentences for violent sex offenders. He said that we don't necessarily need to be tough on crime when he opposed that bill in the Minnesota State House. That's terrible. Just let that sink in. He has supported and rallied and raised money for cop killers, including the murders of Sharif Willis, including Asada Shakur, including Sarah Jane Olson. Just look these facts up. They're absolutely true. He gave a speech at a fundraiser in 2000 for Sarah Jane Olson, and at that same fundraiser, and Sarah Jane Olson, of course, is the person who tried to kill police officer Kathleen Celaya, a.k.a., who tried to kill police officers in Los Angeles with pipe bombs.
Let's give Mr. Ellison a chance to respond. It's quite a laundry list there. I hope you were keeping track. Please respond.
Well, first of all, let me say that I believe that everybody gets the presumption of innocence. If there's somebody accused of something, before they are convicted, they have the presumption of innocence. I will not apologize for believing that. I believe police get the presumption of innocence. I believe that everyone gets it, including people who are accused of sometimes bad things.
You rallied and raised money for
Let me just finish. Let me finish.
Murders of police.
Let's just finish.
They were convicted already.
Let's just finish. Let me
rallied
finish.
and raised money for them.
Tom, am I going to get to finish?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Ellison?
And let me add that I absolutely believe that violent criminals need to be held accountable. But I did say we have to be smart on crime. Just throwing people in a cell does not necessarily make our society safer. What we should do is we should make sure that we use the right penalties and that we use them on people who need to have those penalties exacted upon them. I've been very clear throughout my life that I believe in the rule of law, I believe in safety, and I strongly believe in the presumption of innocence. We can have a criminal justice system and we can have due process of law. That's essentially where I stand on these issues.
Do you, though, regret, even if it was a tangential relationship with Louis Farrakhan or Sarah Jane Olson, do you regret
let me answer that, Tom.
in any way?
Let me just say this, Tom. You know, over 1 million people went to the Million Man March. I was one of them. We did that because we thought that our society needed to.
You worked for Louis Farrakhan.
That is absolutely not true at all. And I believe that the Million Man March was a great event. Louis Farrakhan called that event, by the way. And, you know, there was a time when I thought he had some things to say. That was over 23 years ago that it became clear to me that his value system and mine were not compatible. I have said this.
You met with him in 2016
I
and
did
2013.
not. I absolutely did not. And I can tell you this, that I've made this very clear. Tom, you've been reporting in this town for a long time. You know that I have made it very clear for the past over 20 years that those values expressed by that individual are not my values. And so this is a political thing that my opponents bring up whenever they feel like trying to throw some mud around, but I've been very clear. I am about human rights, liberty, and justice for all people, no matter who they are.
Mr. Wardlow?
Well, the Washington Post, again, gave Keith Ellison 4 Pinocchios for his attempts to disassociate himself from Louis Farrakhan. And the Washington Post is not some conservative bastion. The Washington Post is a mainstream news organization. 4 Pinocchios.
Let me explain that. So the Washington Post was trying to push this 2016 lie.
Well, there's a 2013 meeting when President Rouhani
absolutely
was in New York.
Can I finish?
Yes, let him finish.
Can I finish?
Let him finish his response.
And I said, look, I was at no such meeting as that. I'm not going to dignify any kind of response to this claim that I was at some 2016 or 15 meeting. They went ahead and wrote it anyway because I didn't want to respond to what I thought was a baseless claim that should not be dignified with even a response. So that's what they wrote in response to me just saying, look, guys, that's nothing, that's nowhere, I'm not going to deal with it. Now, was I in a meeting with Rouhani where Farrakhan was in that same meeting along with about 60 other people? But let me tell you why I was there.
I wouldn't go to a meeting
Let me
like
tell
that.
you why I was there. Because Amir Hakmadi was in detention in Iran. I went to that meeting to talk to the leader of that country to gain the freedom of an American who was detained behind those walls. That's why I was at that meeting. I make no apologies for being at that meeting. I would do it again to help get an American free.
We're going to move on to another topic. Leah?
Gentlemen, several Minnesota cities have passed sick and safe time ordinances over the last couple of years. There are also more laws supporting workers who are concerned about wage theft and intimidation. Mr. Wardlow, will you support workers while balancing the needs of business owners?
Well, absolutely. We need to protect workers, and I have a history of my career of protecting workers. You know, I fought for workers for 2 years when I fought unfairly dumped and subsidized imports of Chinese steel coming to the United States. And by doing that, we saved hundreds and hundreds, perhaps thousands of jobs in the American steel industry and on the Iron Range right here in Minnesota. The best way to support workers is to support a strong and vibrant economy for Minnesota. But Keith Ellison, he doesn't do that. He has opposed mining. He has strongly opposed pipelines. He sides with radical environmentalists who would shut down mining in Minnesota if they had the chance. Keith Ellison would be bad for economy, and that undermines workers, and that also means wages would go down. The fact of the matter is, we need to stand with Minnesota workers and for a strong and vibrant economy. And as Attorney General, I would make sure that state agencies don't step out of their legal bounds and overburden job creators. And also, I would protect workers by enforcing wage laws.
Mr. Ellison.
You know, I got a long list of union support. I mean, you could start with the AFL-CIO, the nurses, the teachers. You can go move on there from Teamsters, United Food and Commercial Workers. You can go on and on. AFSCME, SEIU. Why do these worker organizations support me? Because they know I support workers. I support workers because I believe that work has to be rewarded properly. I believe workers have a right to a voice on the job. Now, Mr. Wardlow is the author of the Right to Work for Less legislation in the House. People tell me about how that went down. Even his own party had to try to pull him off of it because they knew at the time it was a bad policy. And he, you know, he's the author of the Right to Work for Less bill in the state of Minnesota. So it's very clear. I believe in standing up for the right for prevailing wage laws, fighting wage theft, standing up for misclassification of workers. And I believe that we have to lift wages, and that means fairness for workers.
Do you think Minnesota should be a right-to-work state where people don't need to join unions or have the right not to?
No, I pushed that when I was in the legislature, but the fact of the matter is I have come to a slightly different view on that. And but it doesn't really matter because the Attorney General's office is not a policy-making job. I'm not going to push right to work or any policy agenda as Attorney General with respect to things that have nothing to do with the office of the Attorney General. Keith Ellison, on the other hand, he wants to push a policy agenda. He wants to sue the president. He said he wants to do that. He wants to sue the president over and over on a variety of different issues. And regardless what anyone thinks about President Trump, that would be an abuse of the powers of the office. The Attorney General is supposed to enforce the law, not make law. He wants to bypass the people's representatives and use the courts to achieve what he can't apparently achieve in Congress.
You know, if I may just respond, look, my office did a study. And in that study, we looked at all of in the Dodd-Frank Act, we required that there be a ratio of CEO pay to worker pay that would be published in corporate documents. We found that in 1968, the average CEO made about 20 times the average worker. Today, it's 339 times. We have to do something to help Minnesota workers get fair and decent pay. I will stand up for that. And I don't know what he's going to do.
Final word.
We do have a need to make sure that Minnesotans get fair and decent pay, and I think that the way to do that is by supporting a strong and vibrant economy in Minnesota, by making sure that state agencies don't overregulate, go beyond their statutory authority. Everywhere I go in Minnesota, I'm hearing this, from whether I'm talking to people in the mining industry or daycare providers. State agencies are largely out of control, and they are creating problems for job creators. Keith Ellison would side with people that want to overregulate. He wouldn't rein in state agencies. He wouldn't make sure they're doing what's legal. He wouldn't counsel them to back off when they're doing things that are unconstitutional, because he sides with people that want to shut down pipelines and mining.
Let's go back. Can
I just respond to that?
We're out of time on that
Okay,
topic.
so, all right.
Let's go back to the opioids issue. I'm going to give you just 1 minute each on this. We're running short on time. We've got one other topic we want to get to after this. Mr. Ellison, some people think the pharmaceutical industry was in many ways responsible for the opioid crisis, manipulating the market. Is that something where you would seek any kind of legal action against the pharmaceutical industry to address the opioid crisis? You have 1 minute.
Yes, I would, and I'm glad that Lori Swanson has joined lawsuit. She's suing Purdue Pharmaceuticals right now because of deceptive and tricky marketing practices that gave a illusory and incorrect idea about the addictive power of these drugs. But I think that suing these manufacturers is an important part of what we need to do. They should compensate victims for the trouble that they have caused. I think about 88 people a day die from opioid addiction. Now it's being laced with fentanyl, which is even more dangerous. I think we need a comprehensive approach. We need drug courts. We need to be able to use we need to get medical expertise in on this problem. But I think that, to answer your question directly, that's a key part of what we need to do.
Mr. Wardlow, 1 minute.
We do need to hold Big Pharma accountable for their role in the opioid crisis, absolutely, and I'm not afraid to do that. This is a terrible crisis with a terrible human cost. The fact of the matter is we need to go after companies that are breaking the law, but we also need to go after opioid dealers and opioid pushers on the black market as well. That means strengthening the criminal law division and making sure that our attorneys, county attorneys, prosecutors, and law enforcement have the resources that they need to do that. We also need to enforce our borders and cooperate with federal authorities to do that, because we cannot solve the opioid crisis if we take Mr. Ellison's approach and simply make Minnesota a sanctuary state. That will just open the door for all sorts of terrible drugs to come into this state and destroy more families and destroy more lives.
Leah?
All right, gentlemen, thank you. We can see you clearly disagree on a lot of topics. So I want to wrap up with this. Would you identify a positive quality of your opponent, Mr. Wardlow?
I think that Mr. Ellison has very passionate beliefs, and he does believe the things he says, and that's a good thing.
Mr. Ellison?
I think Mr. Wardlaw dresses well. I like that tie. That's a pretty good tie. You know what? You know why I said this about Mr. Wardlaw? His father's a really nice man. I'll say that about Lynn Wardlaw.
He is a very nice man and a fantastic role model.
Well, look at that. Gentlemen, thank you. Before we end this debate, we want to move on to the closing statements. Each of you have 1 minute to tell us what you learned about your opponent tonight and why Minnesotans should vote for you. Mr. Ellison, you're first, please.
You know, the core basis of Mr. Wardlaw's campaign is that he's going to be apolitical, he doesn't have any opinion, he's just going to enforce the laws written. And yet we see him saying he's going to fire 42 people based on their party affiliation. Then he doesn't stop there. He goes on to pledge to use the office to support and defend President Trump's agenda. He doesn't stop there. He says he's going to change the complexion of the state of Minnesota to elect more Republicans. That's about as partisan as you can get. My view is that we need a Minnesota Attorney General who is focused on two things. One, making sure that Minnesotans can afford their lives, that they can afford their insulin, that they can afford their diabetes medication, their heart medication, and that their cancer, and that they have an advocate on their side who will stand up and defend them. Also, we need someone who's going to stand up for people's human rights. And I don't care if you're straight, gay, black, white, or whatever color you are. If I'm the Attorney General, you will be able to walk into any establishment in the state of Minnesota and get the human rights that everybody should enjoy. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Ellison, thank you very much. Doug Wardlow, you have 1 minute.
Absolutely. So as Attorney General, I will fight for, protect, and defend all Minnesotans. I will fight for the legal rights of every single Minnesotan, regardless of sex, sexual orientation, gender, or creed. And that is what we need the Attorney General to do, and that is what I will do. You know, Keith Ellison, we have learned this evening that Keith Ellison, well, we've learned what we already knew, that Keith Ellison is an extreme Washington politician who wants to use the Attorney General's office to push a radical policy agenda. He stands for sanctuary cities. He has been associated with Louis Farrakhan for quite a long time. Mr. Ellison also wants to bypass the citizens' legislatures and go through the courts to push his policies, and that's just unacceptable. He's a regular cheerleader for cop killers, and you can look these things up. He stands with cop killers. He stands with criminals. He opposed a bill to prevent teachers from being sexual predators, to prevent sexual predators from working as teachers in our schools. You can't make this stuff up. It's just disturbing. But when I'm Attorney General, I'm going to offer something different. I'm going to protect and defend all Minnesotans, and I'm going to enforce the law and make sure that Minnesota is fair and safe. Thank you.
All right, Doug Wardlow and Keith Ellison, thank you both for taking time to participate with us tonight. Stay right where you are for the moment. Leah, you wanted to thank our sponsors for tonight.
I do want to thank our sponsors. We could not have put on this event tonight without help from Metro State, which was so helpful tonight. Our sponsors as well, the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce, Prosperity's Front Door, and the Citizens League. Thank you for teaming up with us to help us bring these debates tonight. I hope we got a chance to help Minnesotans make an informed decision as we head into Election Day coming right up.
Number of Chamber of Commerce sponsors as well. Twin West, if we have that graphic again, Twin West, I believe Dakota, Minnesota Chamber, the Dakota County Chamber of Minneapolis. We want to thank all of them as well for putting this on. This has been quite an undertaking to make this available statewide, something very rare, commercial-free, statewide, primetime on a Sunday night. And most of all, we want to thank the two candidates before us now and all of the candidates who've chosen to be here tonight.
And we did have a busy day of debates today. If you didn't catch all of our debates, we have them all online. We spoke with the gubernatorial candidates before the attorney generals were here this evening. We spoke with a lot of congressional candidates today and candidates in the race for Senate, too. So all of that is found online at KSTP.com, along with all of our political coverage.
And again, we want to thank Metro State for providing this beautiful building with the backdrop of downtown St. Paul. It has been outstanding, and I know the people in the audience here have been very dutifully, very quiet, but now they can applaud our two candidates and all of the candidates who took part in today's debates. Mr. Wardlow, Mr. Ellison, thank you for taking part in this great democratic exercise. And that is it for our debate.
And we thank you all for joining us tonight. 5 Eyewitness News at 10 starts right after this. Thank you.